joyous day indeed. We are finally at what many podcasts don't actually do. We got to our 10th episode.
Yeah, this is a very special episode of The List Goes On, which I know I say every single time, but this truly is an historic day.
I know, I mean, I kind of, I have to apologize for this audience, but I kind of celebrated prematurely. I had a couple of drinks as kind of a 10th episode celebration to the point where I actually kind of forgot what we were talking about today, so I don't have any notes already.
Excellent. This is a joyous day for me, Connor, because then I get to remind you of what game we are talking about. But before we begin, I'd just like to say, to share in you as a friend, as a confidant, that I've been feeling a little downcast recently.
Oh.
I feel like what we do is a performance, a kind of artistry that we unleash upon to our viewers every 2 weeks or so. That's definitely every 2 weeks, don't check. I just feel like my enthusiasm for the art has been diminished somewhat. And I just need something to restore my spirits, but I don't know what that's going to be.
Oh, it sounds like you're just lacking a bit of confidence in yourself. Maybe you're trying to chasing past glories. You might even have sort of artist block, you know?
Yeah. I feel a little unbalanced.
Oh, really? Okay. That's understandable. I mean, this is something we can talk about off air if you want. But I don't know. I'm worried about you now that you've said this. What are you thinking in terms of alleviating that? Just kind of cracking on with the show, or do you think?
I think if we did like a dance. A 2-minute dance that wasn't very good,
okay.
I would suddenly have all my problems magically resolved by a clown.
Oh no. Is this what we were doing today?
We were, Connor. We were playing and enjoying and experiencing and learning from Balan Wonderworld, the subject of the 10th episode of our lovely podcast, The List Goes On.
Can't we do Legend of K?
No, we delayed Legend of K. We pushed Legend of K back so we could talk about Balan.
Oh.
Connor, this is the 10th episode. This is special. It is not Legend of K material. It is Balan material.
Okay, you know what? I think I have to concede it's a special episode. And, we don't actually have that many grand landmark games we could put here, Maybe it's Balan's time. Okay, well, episode 10 is a beautiful, wonderful, majestic new frontier. Not a new frontier? We've done a Yuji Naka game before.
We've done a Yuji Naka game before. We've done a platformer before. We've done Switch games before.
Yeah.
We've never done Balan Wonderworld before, which is a game that defies categorization in the most wonderful of ways by being somehow incredibly unique, but also dreadfully derivative.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how it kind of straddles that line. I mean, that's the thing about Balan that I find really amusing, is that when we were talking about what episode to do for number 10, or what game to do for number 10, I feel like we just said, Balan.
I think we did it. We did.
It has to be Balan. That's the only game it could be.
Yeah, breaking character, that is straight up what we decided on, because we were just like, we got to lead up to Balan. We were about halfway through doing like episodes 4, 5, 6 of the Bound about the point we decided this when we first played it. During the hot, steamy summer of 2023.
It was very hot.
It was very, very warm. I don't know if that's worth talking about first, is about the conditions we played this under, but...
Yeah, I think that's good. So, as we were saying, we were playing Balan. Balan is a recently played game. It is not one of our archived games. It's not coming from the Disney Vault.
No.
We played Balan over the summer of this year, during a slightly odd period for us both personally. The main reason it was odd is that I was in the middle of moving between one house to the next. And in that in-between time, I was living in a student place for like 2 months. It was kind of like a temporary arrangement with the landlord. He was very nice about it. But it meant that we were playing Balan Wonderworld in this very small, dark student room in the scorching British summer. Yeah. Like lying halfway across a bed, staring up at Balan, just like...
Yeah, it was...
Why do we do this?
It was a hell of an environment. I think it was the right environment. I
remember when we finished Balan and we had to go outside to this like forest, and then we sat under a tree for like an hour talking about Balan.
We just enjoyed nature for a bit, just to kind of get away from the...
Yeah, we got to process what just happened.
Balan was a hell of a time. I'm kind of drawing a blank now on Balan. He's...
We're already 5 minutes in.
No, I know, but it's still... This was a choice. I think the listeners need to understand that this is the kind of game that we will probably make our landmark episodes, because we've had a few like this.
Well, it's just that Balan is one of those games that I feel like we had to play. It kind of feels like a game that has such a poor reputation online that when you're making a anthology video game discussion series, Balan is a game that naturally comes up in discussions.
Yeah.
In much the same way that Shadow the Hedgehog might have done, or other games of that nature, basically.
Yes.
But what I want to get across before we start talking about Balan is that, as I'm sure you will know, because you're all such dedicated gamers, as I expect, is that Balan has an incredibly poor reputation online. This game is kind of the prime laughingstock of 2021. It just got like no love from anyone. It was just derised and laughed at and basically used as a joke for the entire year, basically.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
And it's very, very easy to buy into that reputation because, you know, you watch all the trailers and you see all the visuals and you listen to people talk about it and you're like, I'm never going to play this game. It's easy to just assume that it's bad and laugh at it. But what I felt was really important for me, and I imagine for you as well, is that we gave Balan a fair enough shake, that we played it, made our own opinion on it, and came to our own conclusions, unfettered by the perception of this game online.
That's precisely why I nominated this for the list, because this was my choosing, is that I wanted to kind of have an excuse to play it. I thought that it was the right time to do it was during our weird list. We've sort of played other kind of weird, controversial, derived games before. 2019's Yick is a pretty big one that I'm hoping to do. But yeah, I honestly feel like something that's super important to any kind of discussion or any kind of sort of, I don't want to say intellectual pursuit of gaming, but it kind of is.
No, we are it. We are the peak. We are gaming intellectuals. Please believe that.
I think it's important to try these things out for yourself because games are always a different experience when you actually are holding the controller and going through it yourself. You
Definitely,
know? That isn't to say that if you only have watched the cutscenes that you've got nothing to say at all. I don't believe that really. But what I think is a huge issue with just discussions about all games online is the fact that people will just take the word for it of anyone who shows something just out of context. Another example, like mentioning Yick again, because we played Yick. That's on the list. Like we'll talk about.
Yick is forthcoming. Worry not.
But we played that. It was one of those games that had 2 or 3 kind of big videos on it online. That showed the game in a certain light, and most.
Heck, I had seen those videos. So those had informed my perception of Yick.
And we were just like, oh, okay, well, this is a bit of a shit game, but I was fascinated. I was like, okay, I want to actually look at this like myself. And we walked away from it with a very unique opinion on it from everyone else, which wasn't to just kind of parrot what other people were saying.
And I like to think we're going to have a similar experience. Well, I know that we have a similar experience with Balan Wonderworld, because it's not necessarily that we found ourselves liking this game or that we really enjoyed it.
Oh, no.
To any degree. But I think that we now have a better understanding of what makes the game tick, what makes the game quote-unquote succeed and what makes the game fail that isn't based on just Donkey made a funny video laughing at it,
or we watched like a zero punctuation and went, no, it's the worst game of 2021. It's like, I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's bad.
Like I had kind of come to the point where I wanted to like Balan Wonderworld, and there were moments when we were playing it where I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, or this is kind of unique, and I kind of appreciate this element being in the game. But it is also a game that is very difficult to actually like uncompromised because it's not very well done in any sense.
Yeah, well, it's for a similar reason I like talking about Shadow and Geist, is that those are games that I find very interesting because they stumble. You can see the building blocks of something that could have worked or would have worked, but you can also see just as well the very glaringly obvious flawed by design things that carry the game and inform its reputation.
Oh yes, and Balan has a very unique sense of that. Like the way that this game works is not like any other game that I've ever played, and that makes it so fascinating to talk about. It's just something about it is so misguided and just directionless that it's not bad in the way that any other game I've played is bad, if that makes any sense.
To its credit, I'll say that Balan is wonderful at being this bizarre spectacle show. You know, in a sort of odd way. It's one that unfortunately you, the viewer, have to trudge through.
It's like going to like a theatre student's final production where it's like this weird, passionate thing that has a lot of deep flaws, but you can tell that it was crafted with some degree of love. Like
it makes me think of at one point the school that we used to go to. I don't know if you ever saw this. We had an assembly where it was a production of Little Shop of Horrors.
I did not go to that.
No, it was very uncomfortable. It was not very well acted, although they were trying.
You've got to have a real developed charisma to pull off Little Shop of Horrors. Like, you've got to have some real presence to make that work.
Yeah, no, the leads were not great at it. I think the supporting cast kind of carried that production. I remember that was what I found about it. But that's kind of the thing. I mean, this game is a platformer that involves going through 12 colourful worlds where you play as a scrungly and you have to collect bimbops and go through fucking like that's my jam, you know. I love that kind of thing. I love 3D platformers. I don't have the depth perception issues that a lot of people have while playing these sorts of games.
Well, fine.
That's one of the things all the kind of 2D Genesis, Super Nintendo, Mario, Sonic people always said about Spyro, Crash, Banjo, was that they were just like, I can't get through this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But because I was born in it, molded by it, you know,
you were fully immersed in 3D platformer culture.
Yeah, so I'm always ready to like enjoy a 3D platformer.
Definitely.
I'm gonna give a rough estimate. I'm gonna say I enjoyed about 8% of Balan Wonderworld.
8%. I'm gonna go with a svelte 12%.
12%?
12% of Balan Wonderworld.
Okay.
Mostly because of my deep love for Square Enix and their dumb cutscenes.
Oh, true. Well, that's another thing. This is technically part of the weird cavalcade of Square Enix games that are
This is the 2021 Square Enix Year of Wonder, where they put out Balan Wonderworld, The Quiet Man, and Left Alive.
Were they all out in 2021?
They were all out in 2021, I think.
For some reason, I thought Quiet Man was like 2018.
Maybe it was. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Because I was always under the assumptions these came out once a year.
Yeah, no, that was it. That was it. Is they came out sequentially once a year, and it was like, what Square Enix got for us this year?
Which in some ways I do appreciate that they take a gamble and they're willing to fund certain things. But
don't get me started on this. Don't make me give my Square Enix speech. You know that I will be talking for like 20 minutes about how much I love Square Enix.
Yeah, they're just also the company that makes games that sell millions and millions of copies and go, we poured too much money into this, so we didn't actually make a profit.
Square Enix are the company that held a press conference to celebrate the anniversary of Final Fantasy 15 and then used it to cancel all the game's DLC and fire its director.
Oh my god! What?
Yeah, it fucking happened.
How did I not hear about it?
I've told you about this so many times.
Really?
It's so
How
funny.
the fuck have I blanked on this? Because it's mainly the E3s I remember of Square Enix, but
No, I love Square Enix.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue, I think, for us to talk about the various pieces of context surrounding Balan, for which there are a few.
Yeah.
So Connor, this is the second time I have told you to do this on this podcast, but would you please tell me about Yuji Naka?
Oh my word. Alright, Yuji Naka, the grandfather of Sonic. Or father? I don't know.
I think he's like the uncle of Sonic.
The uncle of Sonic, yeah. If we're looking at it realistically.
You know in Oppenheimer how there's all those scientists that worked on Sonic? He's like the angry guy who worked on Sonic.
Yeah, he's not Oppenheimer himself. But Yuji Naka, ever since sort of striking it big with managing to make Sonic the face of Sega and sort of like the flagship franchise of several consoles and the entire company, really, even to this day where despite Sonic kind of taking a backseat to other franchises now, is still kind of considered the...
I mean, Sonic is so strong a brand that it can survive countless disaster games and still go on strong, so...
Yeah, it's just merchandise, recognizability, nostalgia.
So when you think about it like that, I kind of feel like it's like... To me, it feels like Yuji Naka just replaced Yu Suzuki as like the Sega Rockstar developer.
Yeah.
With Yu Suzuki being the guy who made Outrun and Shenmue and stuff like that.
Oh, true, yeah. I mean, that sort of makes sense given that the way that kind of Yuji Naka went with his development, like he would move around different parts of the world to work with different teams. And I believe his departure from the company, which was during Sonic 06, was kind of a sign. Like a bunch of people quit with him when that happened.
Yeah, I can't remember if Naoto Kashima left at the same time as well, who's the Sonic designer.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, this game is actually a reunion between those two. It is made by the two people who were most involved in the production of Sonic, that being Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima.
Yeah, and you might think, oh, okay, is this going to be a game that resembles like the Sonic art style a lot? Is it going to resemble the Sonic gameplay?
No, you fools!
No, there is a missing link.
There is, yes.
Quite a few missing links, but a big one.
Phantasy Star Online.
Oh, did he make that?
Yeah, Sonic Team made that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
The only like multiplayer GameCube online game in the West, wasn't it?
Hey, that was a Mahjong game in Japan.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I'm saying, just in the West. But yeah, no, they made quite a few other games sort of in between these turn of events. One of which being Knights, which was another one of Yuji Naka's kind of big attempts to kind of make that lightning strike twice and try and make another sort of...
So that was like the Saturn Sonic game, basically. That was the game Sonic Team made for the Saturn rather than making a real Sonic.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that's because they just didn't know what to do.
No, they were like, oh, he's too fast.
They tried Extreme, it wasn't working out.
That was a different team as well.
Oh, was it?
That was an American team.
Okay, yeah. They made this game called Knights that had this incredibly vivid, surrealist sort of art style that was very circus-like, dreamlike, because the game, Knights into Dreams, is all about dreams, nightmares, and all of these concepts. And I'll speak from a slightly ill-informed place. I just went on a big spiel about playing games to understand them properly, but I will make a point across. I have barely touched Knights. and that's because the few times I have touched Nights, I found it incomprehensible.
Yeah, Nights into Dreams is it's like a vision quest. It's like a complete medley of sounds and colors that makes no sense. It's like you're playing these two children and they're running around these like Mario Galaxy-esque planetoids, and then something that they do then starts a Nights level, which is where you're flying around as this clown and he's doing like loop-de-loops through like rings and stuff.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what's going on.
All right, sorry, 1 second. So you play as these two children.
There are two children who are in a dreamlike circus world.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's a big, thin, tall guy with a hat.
Yeah. And then you're saying there's a couple points where you then just play as the guy and he flies around. Okay, but it's not the same. It's not them. He's not the kids.
He's not the kids. The kids are like, they're channeling his power.
Right, okay, sorry. Just writing this down because this feels very familiar. I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, so this is the reason why we're going to such lengths to explain Nights into Dreams, because it would be charitable to describe Balan Wonderworld as a Nights spiritual successor. Like, it just is Nights, basically.
Yeah, it's straight up Nights. Yeah. And I've got to say, just from first impressions, when I look at the aesthetics of the games, despite the very busy, sort of almost sort of overstimulating nature of Nights, I do find at least the character designs and some of the visual elements actually more appealing.
Oh yeah, I think the Nights designs and the Balan designs are actually really cool. Like I think they look really like unique and like eye-catching and stuff.
They're very unique.
Yeah.
Like I want to give Balan that credit, is that like Naoto Oshima is actually quite a good character designer, even if it's not always to my taste.
Yeah.
I've never been the biggest fan of the big hand, big feet sort of thing, which is going to make, the fact we put the effort into our thumbnails to resemble these things look a little bit odd.
Well, we want to keep Sen busy.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And plus,
he's not busy enough.
He's a talented. He's a talented guy.
He's very sick right now. Please send him your love.
Yeah, please do. Send the hashtag. Send love.
Nice. You really pulled that one together.
With the sends in capitals.
Yeah.
No.
All right, so Connor, we've now briefly talked about Yuji Naka. We've talked about Nights into Dreams.
Yeah.
But I now want to launch into one of my micro obsessions, which is the unescapable fact that Yuji Naka is a monster and an asshole.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I don't think we talked about this during the Shadow episode, but from all accounts and all experiences that we've had told to us about working with Yuji Naka, apparently he's just a huge asshole. Like, he's a really not a very nice person at all. The two stories I'd like to tell is there was a studio in Sega who were working on I believe it was it's some kind of vertical shooter game that Sega makes. But they were making a new entry in a long-forgotten series, basically.
Ikaruga isn't a Sega thing,
Ikaruga,
is it?
No,
okay.
That's Treasure. But it basically was a game that had really smooth 3D scaling as you were moving up through the stages. And they had a day where Yuji Naka came to their studio to look at their work and to basically give it the green light or cancel it. And he was looking at all their stuff and he said to his, like one of his co-workers in Japanese, fire all these guys and steal their engine so we can use it for Sonic. Not realizing that one of the people there spoke Japanese and could understand what he was saying.
Oh.
Yuji Naka quit Sega and then was expecting Nintendo to hire him. So he sat around all day waiting for Nintendo to call him to give him a job. And then when they didn't, he just went to the building and stood right outside. Was waiting for them to hire him.
I didn't realize that was a very real Nintendo hire this man moment.
Yuji Naka was like, look, I made an Unreal 4 engine demo of Mario, what do you think? And then the other story I like to tell about Yuji Naka is that he had a massive and very public falling out with Naoto Oshima, the character designer for all of his games, to the point where he kept posting pictures of like the staff parties from Sonic's development, and he had like blotted out Naoto Oshima with black ink.
Oh my god!
Like cut him out using Photoshop. It was
Holy
like, fuck
shit!
This guy. Yeah,
that's some Stalin on the boat moments. Like good grief.
So Yuji Naka is a huge jerk, and the reason why that's relevant for this story is that the development of Balan Wonderworld seems to have been deeply turbulent and massively controversial, at least for the people who were involved. Yuji Naka, after leaving Sega, he went to go form his own company that were called Prope, and Prope just made a bunch of bullshit for a while. Like, they made a game called Let's Tap for the Wii, which came with a piece of cardboard that meant you could tap your Wiimote into this rhythm, and that was stupid.
Rodea the Sky Soldier.
Rodea the Sky Soldier, a classic, and then I think that was the thing that kind of closed their doors, because you can't make Rodea the Sky Soldier and hope to recover from that. So, after making a few mobile games for a bit, he was given a chance by the ever lovely and willing to invest Square Enix to make a platforming game in his style, along with Naoto Oshima, who we hadn't worked with since Sonic, so it was a really exciting product. Like, it was kind of... I remember the first trailer coming out during, like, a 2020 Nintendo Direct, and it was like, oh, Yuji Naka's making a real big console game again with the original Sonic designer, and that might actually be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
But apparently the development was just a complete nightmare. Like, From what I can tell from my research, Square Enix just doesn't really understand how to make platformers.
I can't imagine that they do. They're very much... I mean, listen, they're a company that very much made their start on RPGs.
Yeah, definitely.
I can see them... And the main reason you might say, oh, but surely Square Enix published, things like Hitman and Tomb Raider and that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but from buying other devs. It doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to direct or kind of like lead these sorts of things, which...
Yeah, and they got this company called Arzest to make this, who are well known for making a slate of very bad platformers.
Oh.
They made like the 3DS Yoshi's Island game that everyone hates, New Yoshi's Island, and all games like that aren't very good. So,
okay.
From what I can tell, seemingly by the end of it, Yuji Naka was fired from production because he was being a huge jerk to all of his staff.
Jeez, okay. Yeah.
And then he was sent away for like the last 6 months of the game, and he kept coming out and being like, if I was there, Balan Wonderworld would never have released like that. They took my baby away from me and they ruined it. And then all the devs came out and was like, he was a huge jerk and he was being abusive and he was doing all this stuff. Then he went to jail.
Yes, for insider trading.
Which was insider trading that he did during the development of this game at Square Enix.
I think someone once connected the dots, because the insider trading was for things like Dragon Quest Builders, right?
I think it was a few Square mobile games. I think it was the Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale gacha.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I heard someone connect a couple of red threads that it was going to be Dragon Quest Builders, because there was a while where the PS4 and Xbox versions of the game, if you got them physically, had a flyer for Dragon Quest Builders on it, like where they were trying to promote that very hard.
I see, yeah.
But that might have just been Square. I think that might just be this kind of thing. I mean, in a way, it's a slightly... I say slightly. It's a huge shame to actually hear that Yuji Naka was such a huge jerk, because I want to take those stories with a pinch of salt, but also at the same time, like...
There's so many of them. Like, there's like a completely consistent and storied catalogue of all the times that he's been really abusive on his development teams and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like... I feel like enough smoke has now been detected for the fire to be real, right?
I can see this game coming out the way that it did actually being that's more the product of having a director that is such at odds and trying to control this product into being a very specific image. Because there's some quirks about it, and there's some quirks about this that really feel like his sort of touch, like the every single action button doing the same thing, which is such a bizarre thing. It feels so outdated as like a detail, whereas even Mario's kind of figured out that you can you can assign different buttons to do different things.
I mean, the thing I was thinking about while you were making the tea earlier is I was like, oh, this game has a Sonic structure, because it's like you have 12 levels and they're divided into 2 chapters and then a boss fight. And that's the structure for the entire game. It's just the Sonic structure.
Yeah, that's how it feels. It's interesting. On the one hand, every creative's going to have their own touch, which is interesting, but I feel like that's already there with the art direction and the vibe.
Yeah, definitely. The vibe is so nice.
Yeah,
it's
I can't get over it. I really can't get over that this game is just nice.
Yeah. Although a detail that we've neglected to mention thus far is that they actually formed a shell company to make this game, which is called the Balan Company. I think from what I can recall from developer interviews before this game came out, they were expecting it to be like a big franchise, and they were going to make like a Balan shared universe. And I think Yuji Naka was like, this is my final chance to make a new Sonic. Please support Balan so I can keep making more Balan.
Yeah.
This is like a huge project of passion for him, I suppose.
Yeah, I never like that attitude, because in some cases it's very true, but I really don't like it when a particular art form or company is in such a dire straits that they're basically begging you to kind of... buy and support their like last thing. Yeah. Even if it's something that you're looking at and being like, this kind of looks terrible. And I really
they had that with Chibi Robo as well, right? Where they were like, please buy Chibi Robo Ziplash to support the Chibi Robo franchise or we'll die. And it's like, you made a bad game. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You made a game that's nothing like the other Chibi Robos, and it's like, why?
And us as now huge Chibi Robo fans, like, we're furious about that.
Chibi Robo is on the list. We've played it. That's another one to kind of follow us up at some point.
Better than the Gregory Horror Show? Find out next time.
Oh my god.
We don't talk about it.
But
those are bad words.
What?
Just is Chibi Robo better than Gregory Horror Show? No one knows what we're talking about.
No, are you kidding?
Alright, so I feel like we've talked enough about the kind of relevant development history for Balan for us to now be able to talk about the actual game. Before we do, though, we've been saying a few times over the course of the podcast that Balan seems to be a product of great passion for Yuji Naka, or at the very least the people who were making it.
Yeah.
No matter the fact that the development went so horribly awry that he had to be removed from development, it still seems like it was something that he had a lot of love for. And I want to kind of accentuate that by talking about the game's box art.
Yeah.
Balan Wonderworld came out for all the relevant platforms, your Xboxes and your PlayStations and your Switches. So we're playing the Switch version, which is a point I actually do want to bring up, which is that we talk about how we wanted to give Balan a fair shot and form our own opinions on it, but we then deliberately chose to seek out the worst version of it that looks and runs the worst.
Yeah, we played this on the Switch. It came out for quite a few platforms.
Yeah, all the relevant platforms. So the box is quite nice. It's got this like striking pose of Balan doing like a big like squishy arms pose in front of a spotlight. What I want to talk about though is that the game comes with a little ticket. Yeah. Like a little in-universe ticket for Balan's show. And it's all rendered in the styles of like a 1920s circus. It's like, welcome to Balan's Wonderworld, and it costs this much money, and it'll premiere on this thing here. Yeah. And it's actually kind of sweet. And on the back, it's got Balan's signature.
Yeah, it does.
And this is the thing to me. This is the piece of paper that proves this game was a project of passion. Because look at this little, like, in-universe thing they've made that they included with the game for free.
Yeah,
like
during an era where any kind of like physical release beyond super special collector stuff was just sort of gradually dying out and all the details are going, like when was the last time you've seen an instruction manual, that kind of thing. It's that kind of little thing that shows that this was a labor of love, even if it didn't quite show its dividends.
It's even got inlay art.
Yeah,
like
it does.
In the box, there's more art, which is really nice.
It's quite nice as well. It shows a lot of the signature
the characters.
That's in it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like I'll immediately open with a compliment on this game.
Yeah,
man, a lot of talented artists and 3D modelers and everything on this project.
So, do you want to tell me about the premise of Balan, Connor?
Certainly. So, we open up following the stories of either a boy or a girl in a sort of ambiguous city from an ambiguous time. It looks
vaguely to me like New York.
Yeah, it looks a little bit Yeah, that's a good point, actually. There's a lot of Art Deco. This boy called Leo Craig, who's trying to be a dancer and loses his confidence in his abilities and his friends. Or it follows the story of a girl called Emma Cole, who lives in this grand, elaborate estate, who's worried that she is being socially excluded by her peers and her servants as well.
She has anxiety, is the way it's described on the game's like official websites and stuff like that.
Yeah. Who at some point decides to leave their usual kind of stomping grounds and decide to wander off into the city. As they do, they go through this sort of dark alley full of mystery and wonder, where this grand glowing door in an old sort of run-down theatre opens up to them and they venture forth. Cracked mirrors, discarded toys, dusty furniture is everywhere, until they meet the figure of a very bizarre-looking man, who we know to be the titular Balan. He's playing around with a few gems. He's got these weird little bird creatures that sometimes have rabbit ears, tosses them around, zips around, talks to them about how like they're clearly missing something and there's something they want back.
Well, that's the thing I like about Balan in this opening cutscene, is that he loves it. He is so enthusiastic. Like, he's spinning around, he's chucking like lights and sounds everywhere. Like he is like a performer at his very core.
He's frantically cleaning last minute, like I do every single time I have to set up the podcast. Before setting up this stage show, sitting Emma and Leo down, who are in parallel versions of the theatre.
Yeah, there's a cool visual where they're both entering the theatre at the same time, and at the side of the corridor they're walking down, there's a mirror. And when they're not looking at it, you can see the other person through the mirror, but when they look at the mirror directly, it becomes them again. So it's like they're like going into the same theatre at the same time, but through different locations, basically.
Yeah, that's how it comes across to me
they're
as
all
well.
being drawn into Balan's Wonderworld.
Yeah, that they are. Yeah. Who then whisk them away into this wonderful show full of colour and mesmerising visuals.
It's one of the great benefits of working with Square Enix is that you get access to their incredible CGI department. Yeah. Because this cutscene is like elaborate. It's immaculate looking. It looks really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really nice sort of like opener
it's
to
like
this.
Colourful, vivid, like expressive. It's got a lot of energy. Like it really, really, really hits.
Yeah. The game then drops us into the Isle of Tims.
This is when Balan reveals that he's tricked you. And he's not actually going to help you with your problems. He's hired you as an unpaid intern to do all his work for him.
Yeah, you're dropped into this place called the Isle of Tims, where it's revealed the Tims are the weird little bird people.
They're little blob people.
Yeah, they're the Chow. They're the Sonic Chow.
They're the Sonic Chow.
They have Chow.
There's even like a simulation minigame of them that you can perform in.
Yeah, where it turns out there are 12 different worlds that all have like a person who's particularly troubled in them, and where Leo or Emma, you have to choose one, who are customizable as well.
Yeah, you can change their hair color and their skin color, which is nice.
Yeah.
Although we were playing as Emma because I was involved, and we had her be blonde.
you go into these worlds as these characters to navigate a set of sort of colourful platforming jumps and try to resolve the issues of these other people.
Yeah, it's kind of a little abstract. It's one of the things that I felt we talked about constantly with this game, where it has this setup where the idea is that Balan, using the power of performance, restores the light and joy to people's lives who have become troubled. But in the way it works in the game, you see a cutscene of a person in trouble who has something going wrong with them. You then do 3 unrelated platforming levels, and then you dance with the person and then they're fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, were the levels intrinsic to that? Like, was that a part of the process? Like, it's never really made clear. I mean, it doesn't really have to be, but it's still a little odd.
No, I think that the big jape with Balan, which is the same...
Balan jape.
Which is the same for Knights, really, is that he's all over the box art, and by that I mean he's the only one on the box art, which makes you think, this is going to be about Balan, this is who you play as, this is what it's named after. No.
You play as Emma.
Yeah.
Or Leo. And those are the 2 main characters. They do all the work. But then in the CG cutscene, Balan's like in the background, like, look what I've done. And it's like, you did nothing, Balan. This was all me.
You know how Halo 2, everyone felt tricked by the fact the Arbiter takes up half the game?
Yeah.
Imagine if you start up Halo 2, it has this big opening cutscene with Master Chief, and then it cuts to you playing as 2 grunts.
That would be pretty funny, yeah.
That's how it feels. That's what this is like. But I want to start off by just saying that the Isle of Tims, when you first go onto it, is just a completely plain, flat, grassy knoll.
Right, I'm gonna go further. I'm gonna reveal a great truth about how I feel about Balan Wonderworld, which is that the Isle of Tims fucking sucks. It's so annoying. It's basically this like tiny circle with a bunch of grass on it, and what you do with it is that once you're in the levels, you can collect gems which you can feed to the Tims. This will then put the Tims to work. They'll spin like a wheel for you, or they'll jump on these little switches.
Yeah.
And that will give you Tim points. And then you can use the Tim points to build more things on the Isle of Tims, but the only thing you build is things for the Tims. Yeah. So it's worthless.
It's a tycoon game.
Yeah, basically.
It's your cookie clickers and that kind of thing. Like, some people get sort of enjoyment out of it, and it's nice as a distraction, but I don't think it has a grand sense of worth. It doesn't add anything to the game. It's sort of like, all right, because one could argue that when you play a game like Mario, Sonic, that kind of thing, you go like, okay, what the fuck is the point of coins, rings, gems, Wumpa fruit, anything like that?
Yeah.
And the simple answer is,
well, you shoot them from the Wumpa gun.
Oh, well, yeah. But normally it's that they give you lives, but modern platformers don't tend to have life systems anymore. It's generally considered an outdated concept, to the point where Crash Bandicoot 4, which came out the year before this, dropped it entirely.
Yeah.
Whereas, but in this case, it's like, okay, the point of collecting things in levels is to give you things for the Tims. It's to get more Tims. But there's no real proper end goal. You don't need them to beat the game.
No. So from what I've gathered from my extensive research is that you can use the Tims to eventually get the Balan costume. And Balan's power is that he can fly.
Yeah.
So you can just fly around the levels. Although the point has been made that to get to it, you have to have done everything in the levels first. So there's nothing else to collect.
Yeah, so it's basic. It just runs parallel with a 100% completion reward, which
it kind of feels like the Isle of Tims is just there because he was like, oh, it has to have a Chow Garden.
Yeah, because I want to make Sonic Adventure again.
That's what makes Sonic Adventure do well, is that it had a Chow Garden, so I need to have my own Chow Garden.
Yeah. That's fascinating as well, as how many people like the Chow Garden, and yet every time people have gone, Sega, make another Chow Garden in the Sonic game, they always go, what?
It's probably a lot of work.
I mean, maybe, but it's about as much work as making Sonic Frontiers.
That's true.
You know, like making another big, elaborate sort of open world.
That would have been a good one for the Chow Garden as well. Because the thing I was thinking about it is that in a conventional Sonic game, you have to kind of make the Chow Garden as a separate element to the levels. Because, you know, you can't be doing Chow Garden raising in the levels because you're running around as Sonic.
Yeah.
But Sonic Frontiers doesn't open world, just have little Chow farms in the world somewhere.
They could have done that.
Yeah,
but,
they could have.
Yeah.
They're modern Sega, so.
Yeah. But I kind of want to then go a little bit further and talk about the hands-on of stepping into these parts of the levels.
You want to truly immerse the audience in the Isle of Tims and the subsequent levels of Balan.
Yeah. Which is that you kind of run along, you find your first world, it's the only one you have access to, you step into World 1-1, where you see the title of the first level, The Man Who Rages Against the Storm.
And it's like, you've been playing Balan Wonderworld up to this point, and the entire game has been this little clown man going, Baba Booey!
Yeah.
And then you go into a level and it's like, Chapter 1, The Man Who Rages Against the Storm.
Yeah. It's so dramatic of a name, and it gives you a little graphic of just this little farmer guy who's just shoveling a little something. You then step forth and go, okay, I'm on a path, I'm going forward. What do the buttons do? Okay, I'm going to press A. Ah, it's jump. Okay, fantastic.
Wonderful. I know. I'm grounded now. I know what's going on.
That's fantastic. Now, what does X do? Jump.
Oh, okay. Maybe, jumping is an important function, so maybe you need to have more than one button for younger players,
Yeah.
But what does B do?
B jumps.
B jumps.
Yeah.
Okay. Y?
A jump.
Okay, I'm going to press the triggers. That might be a crouch or something.
Jump.
No. It cannot be.
And as you're frantically going through the controllers, you check the other trigger and it jumps again, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, is it just directionals and jumpings? You then press a bumper and nothing happens, and you're like, of all the... Why go through all this then? Why make... And you pop briefly into a menu to go, something's wrong.
Yeah.
What is there an alternate control scheme? And you open it up. And, by instinct, you're probably pressing A to select things in the menus. At some point, you then press B to go back. You've selected A again, basically. Every button is yes.
Every button is go.
Yeah. Every button is activate. That's what they all do.
Balan Wonderworld is truly the first jump game. Because all you do is jump.
Unless...
Alright, we'll get to that. To that.
This is what I mean about Yuji Naka, is that it's like, Sonic 1... You have 3 buttons on the Genesis controller, A, B, and C. They all do the same thing.
Yeah.
They all jump.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
But Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2D platformer with incredibly tight mechanics and not a need for any further buttons. Balan Wonderworld is a 3D platformer in 2023 or 2021.
I've heard people complain about the fact that a lot of the Mario games will have one function on 2 buttons, but at the same time, at least those sort of make a kind of ergonomic sense of they're near each other. It's comfortable for your thumb.
And the mechanics are tight enough that it kind of works.
Yeah.
Whereas Balan is just you do one thing in this game. You press the button, and it doesn't matter what you press. The kind of explanation that Yuji Naka gave for it was that he wanted this game to be incredibly accessible to children. So he was like, I'm going to make a game with simple mechanics that only require the use of a single button. But I feel like he's not giving kids enough credit.
No.
I beat Mario when I was a kid. I just learned what the buttons did. That's how you become smarter,
My first game was Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
And boy howdy, you got 4 face buttons and 3 functions, could you believe it?
I don't want to immediately start being back in our time, Connor, it was better. They respected what you could do. They didn't give you these dumb jump games.
Yeah, which I do kind of appreciate the sentiment that it is trying to be accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
And that kind of thing. But at the same time, you know what? That actually feeds into another one of his philosophies, which is communicating ideas. He also wanted that to be as accessible to as many different peoples as possible. So when you initially open the game...
Oh, yes, I forgot about this.
You have a language option for almost every language on Earth.
That's not quite true.
Okay, well, that's not quite true. We can't communicate in the language of North Sentinel Island.
No. All of the popular languages. All the big languages.
Yeah,
what that does mean is that they've localized the game into maybe localized 6 lines of text.
Yeah.
There's very little dialogue in this game. It's very sparse.
Yeah, everyone in this game speaks a made-up language.
Yeah.
If you listen to it to the untrained ear as someone who speaks English, it'll probably sound like Japanese. It's not.
It kind of sounds like they're just doing endless variations on Baba Booey.
Yeah, a little bit like blah 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 blah. It sounds a bit like that, which your Banjo-Kazooies have got that kind of thing in text, but at the same time, it's very weird to see and hear that in a HD game. I sort of like it as a throwback, but it doesn't
I
feel...
like it. I think that's fine. The thing that's weird about it though is that sometimes they subtitle Balan's text and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, which sort of defeats the point of having this language and trying to communicate a story without words. It's you clearly felt a need for words here.
But then, the one where they don't do it is the very end cutscene where Balan's talking to all the friends you made along the way, but that text isn't subtitled.
No.
And it's I'm just watching a guy go blip, 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 blip.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
It's very, very weird, and we'll have more examples of how this kind of plays into it later, but kind of stepping briefly back in, when you finally figure out how to close your menu, you step forward and you've given up.
If you haven't gone back to the Isle of Tims because you were trying to close out and then you just press the button to go back and it's selected.
Yeah.
Because that happened to us a few times.
You then run forward in the Man Who Rages Against the Storm level and just see a massive fucking guy sitting there.
Yeah, so you're in a kind of corn world. You're in a floating corn island world.
Yeah.
And you're running forward and you're like, right, I'm Emma Cole, I'm powering ahead, and this is in front of you is a giant doughy man.
Yeah.
And he's looking at you like, welcome to my world.
Yeah, he's just staring at you.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, oh god, okay, there's a giant. He doesn't attack you, doesn't do anything, and you're just like, okay, I'll go on my merry way. And as you step any vague sense of being close to him, he vanishes. Just
he's gone. He just whooshes out of existence.
Feels like a kind of effect you'd find in an artsy indie game.
Yeah.
You also might kind of glance to your left and see a weird animal wolf man doing a weird dance, and you're like, is that an enemy? What is that? You go up to them and they also...
Yeah. And we were suspicious for a while that was just a problem in the Switch version, like it's like some kind of like memory culling thing. But no, that's just how it is in every version of the game.
Yeah.
Like it just happened. This is programmed to do that.
Yeah, sometimes I want to actually look at those designs to be like, what are you? What is this? And they're gone.
See, the most pressing thing about the way the game presents its visuals to me is not the giant farm disappearing man or the dancing wolves. It's the fact that when you look into the horizon, you see that the world is slightly curved. And as you walk forwards, it begins to unfurl. Like the world like collapses in on itself as it moves. Kind of like Animal Crossing, but in a game where you can control the camera.
Yeah.
So you can just see the world slowly like folding as you walk into it. And it gives you a bit of a headache. Like it's kind of disconcerting.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It does make me think of what you were saying a little bit earlier about Nights, which is the idea of it being this kind of weird rolling landscape.
Yeah.
It's probably trying to mimic that. Maybe a little bit of Mario Odyssey-ish.
Yeah, because you are in like a dreamscape. You're on like a bunch of floating platforms where the world is like you're like encased in a big cloud sky rather than being on any actual physical location.
And I do like that. I like I do enjoy the weird abstractness of a lot of like platforming games.
Definitely,
I think it's fun to embrace that kind of thing with things like Mario and Spyro and such. But
and I do think that there are times in which the visuals of this game do cohere into something that is quite charming, or at the very least appealing. You know, like it's like there's like a level later on that's got this Victorian steampunk aesthetic, and it actually looks kind of cool. Like it's all these like these big libraries and like clockwork gears whirring along, and it looks really distinct and really fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not quite so much though.
But as much as I like Farmer, I think his name's like Gonzalez or something.
Farmer Ted. Yeah.
Farmer Ted. Yeah. As much as I do like him, his world is not one of these standout environments.
No. So here's kind of the point where I'm going to struggle to get across really what I'm trying to say about Balan Wonderworld. As I was saying earlier, it's very much a game that was designed to appeal to young children. To say that the game is mechanically complex is to say that water is dry. Like, its levels are boring. Like, there's no real zest or spice to them. There's no platforming challenges that really, like, test you in any meaningful way. Really, all you sort of do is just run from one end to the other end, doing an occasional jump.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is for the first few worlds.
That's most of the navigation you've got, yeah, because it's...
Like, from what I recall from the Man Who Rages Against the Storm's first act, you go forward down this straight corridor, teleport through a mirror, jump over a few gaps, and that's the entire level.
Basically, yeah. Like, there's some blocks to break, but they're mainly optional. They get you some gems.
For the wonderful Tim's minigame.
But you might be thinking, all right, you've just told me that every single action you have is jumping, so how do you break those blocks? Is it that, like, you jump on top of them, or you jump under them like a Mario sort of situation? And that's when we get to costumes.
Costumes, yes. So... have you motherfuckers played Mario Odyssey? Let me tell you about it.
Please go on.
What if we did that, but it was way dumber?
Oh my god, alright. Well, so... you might find in the level these floating keys.
Yes.
And usually right next to them...
it's like literally like 5 meters away from them,
You'll find this weird gemstone that has the face of one of the weird dancing animals that you can barely get to see. If you run into it when you've already collected a key, you will unlock an outfit that Emma/Leo can wear.
It does this really stupid animation as well, where like your character will do a dumb dance in the costume, and it'll, like, zoom in, and then it'll be like diddle it, and
with a little fanfare.
And like sometimes they're like they're a little scandalous. Like the one where she's a pig, she's like waves her butt at you, and you're just like, Emma, please.
Like, bro,
yeah.
You mean pounding pig?
I mean pounding pig, of course. Yeah, how could I be so foolish?
Please call it by its maiden name. But it's.
Are you saying that pounding pig is unmarried?
Yes, they
didn't marry into the pig family,
into the Tornado Wolf family, where they would become Tornado Pig, or would they be Pounding Wolf?
Pounding.
Oh.
We're sorry for that.
Yeah, sorry. It's a very odd case because you then have these outfits, and your jump button, your action button, is
replaced by that costume's power.
Yeah, which in the case of the wolf, it's a jump with a spin.
Yeah, he does a little twirl, basically, and the twirl does damage.
Yeah, it breaks objects, and it also will destroy enemies, which are weirdly implemented.
Yes. So the thing I wanted to say about the costumes is that the levels are very much designed for the costumes that you get at each world to be utilized, as you would expect from a game of this kind. So, for instance, with the Twirling Wolf, there are a bunch of blocks that you can break, or you can use it to get across platforms or to kill enemies.
Yeah.
You also get a, I think is it the one where you get Pounding Pig?
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, which you can use to like break blocks and make switches go down and like use weights and stuff like that. And it is kind of competently done because it's like, oh, you get a power and then the level asks you to use that power and that's what makes it satisfying. But something about it just doesn't quite hit the mark because it doesn't really complicate the matter. It's just like, this guy can do this one thing, do it.
Yeah.
And then you do it and that's the level. It's not like you have to combine them or do anything unique with them. You can't use two powers at the same time. You always have to have one set at one time. So it's just, you get this one mechanic, here's the things you can do with it, that's the level, go home.
Yeah, there's a little, if you want to switch between outfits, there's a little like animation for about a second you have to do.
As well.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Which, you know, I've for some people might not be an issue. For instance, most of the Shantae games, there's usually a mechanic where you have to transform into a different animal. So you have Shantae do a little dance before she kind of becomes it, and that does kind of stop the action for her to do it.
Yeah.
But the thing is I've also heard a lot of people say that the best Shantae game is Half Genie Hero, where she doesn't have that because it breaks the flow.
Because the thing here is that Balan Wonderworld is inherently a platformer. It's a game in which flow is important, in which the way that your character moves is the entire point.
Yeah.
So there's action that you have to do repeatedly, which just stops your momentum entirely and like breaks up the pace of the game. Is like deleterious to its enjoyment because like the game isn't fun to control. Like even when you're not playing as any of the costumes, the way that Emma and Leo move, they have this kind of like slippy run where the speed of which they're running and their animation doesn't seem to match how fast they actually move, and they kind of like slip and slide all over the place, and it just doesn't feel good to control. It's not like you get any joy from moving in that world, so it's up to the mechanics to then fulfill that role for you, but they fail to do that as well, so there's not really much to grab onto here, you know.
It's not particularly deep, and you have so many costumes to collect as well, many of which are identical. Eventually, as you go through more and more worlds, you might find smaller elements that remind you of a different costume and make you think, oh, right, if I had this other costume in this earlier world, I could use it to get into this place.
So for instance, there's a costume that's a spider, which allows you to climb spider webs, and in some levels you'll see the spider webs and go, oh, if I brought that here, I could then go to a new area.
Yeah. Which, thankfully, if you get to a checkpoint, you can go and get those things. However, the key mechanic means that there are a finite number of the costumes that you have collected and pulled into a little thing.
So the way it works is that you can hold up to 3 costumes at any given time, and if you get more costumes at that point, the third one on your tray will get sent to your wardrobe, basically.
Yeah.
And then also when you finish a level, the 3 costumes that you had at the end of the level will go to your wardrobe.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a specific costume, you have to go back to the level, collect a key to get the costume, and then go back to the Isle of Tims, and then go back to the level you were in.
Yeah.
And then you get hit by a single enemy and you lose it again, so you have to go back to it, and it's just like a whole...
you have to go all the way back. It's
like a 20-second loading screen between each like level as well, so it's a huge pain in the butt.
It's a huge time waster. It would be way better if you just unlocked these costumes with each level and you had them permanently to kind of like swap out as you needed them
rather than having to grind them out. Go and collect a bunch of them so you have them you have access to them.
Yeah, that's not fun.
No, it's not fun at all.
It really isn't. But the thing is that there's about 80 in the game, I believe.
There are 80 costumes exactly. Yeah.
Some of them are identical. The only difference is they have a different aesthetic. I mean, even the kind of, we're looking at this box art that has like the canon ones, like the ones that are related to certain characters. 2 of the ones on here are the exact same one.
Yeah.
Which I find very funny as an oversight, because at least you could go like, oh, these are the 12 ones that all have the 12 abilities and everything else.
Because there are definitely 12 ones that have unique abilities. They just haven't chosen to use them all on the art.
No, they haven't.
Yeah.
But it's some of which are deliberately weird gimmicks, like the one that's kind of infamous among people who've read much about this game is there's one called Box Fox.
Yeah, he's my favourite Five Nights at Freddy's character.
Box Fox?
Yeah.
Where his entire thing is that he is a fox who, at random intervals, will turn you into a fox, but if you are moving, will keep your momentum if you're moving. So you might be going through a tight platforming section, you might be like trying to go from one place to another, you suddenly become a box, you lose all control over your character for 8 seconds, you slide up a cliff and die, and you have to go back to the beginning again.
Yeah. Or you get ones that are like, you light up randomly.
Yeah. Oh my god, that one's stupid. That doesn't do anything! I don't think that one actually had a purpose.
But you know what's the most infuriating thing about it, though? Is that, like, there's the categorization of useless gimmick ones, and then there's the actual utility ones, but even those ones aren't very fun.
No.
Because they're always either really slow, they stop your momentum, or they have some really irritating gimmick. Like, there's one where it's like a chess piece, and the whole point of it is that it shoots out cannonballs in a cross pattern.
Yeah.
And it's like really annoying to hit enemies with that, because you can't control how fast you shoot. It just shoots on a random interval.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to like line up these dumb shots, like just let me shoot this thing. Like, what are we doing?
Movement is not precise enough on on your characters to actually let you work around them. Yeah. And I mean, fucking hell, I can already think of a better idea for a chess thing. Is like, oh, what if you have a puzzle that involves a grid and you have to be able to move around the grid? Like, what if you were a knight piece? You could hop. Bada bing.
Yeah.
That's already a better idea than just you are a fucking cannon.
But I think the issue is that the level design is so restrictive and not very imaginative. So if they had powers that actually did like world-changing, like mechanically satisfying things, the level designs wouldn't be able to account for that.
No.
Because the levels are all so simple and so plain. You can't have like evocative or powerful abilities, because then you would just break all the levels, which sometimes you actually can do. Because, for instance, we got a power in World 6 that was called Air Cat.
Yeah.
Which Air Cat just lets you float for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's so good that we would always use it for every level, and it would break every level.
Yeah, because you could get past obstacles. You could even like sort of a few times you could actually kind of like sequence break things and go places you weren't supposed to.
Because like you can activate Action Cat at any point during your fall. So if you fall off a cliff and you're falling to your death, you can just activate Action Cat and it will just save you. You've
just done that thing we were saying before. We loved Air Cat so much, and at some point we just started calling her Action Cat.
Yeah.
So if we say Action Cat, we need Air Cat.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But I think that's our favorite outfit in the game.
Yeah, that is definitely. It's that one and the ice variant, where the thing with her is that she doesn't float for quite as long, but she does give you height as she goes, which is really useful in some instances.
Yeah. Like those are kind of the two big ones. But
like that was the thing. Every time we would lose Air Cat or the Ice Air Cat, we would just quit the level, go back to Ice Cat's or Air Cat's level and get another one and then go back, because it was just so much more useful than every other ability in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like way more useful than the guy who lets you see hidden things sometimes, maybe.
Yeah, or the fucking like the gear guy. Yeah, he opens some doors
and like. You better hope there's that gear in the level. So if there's not, you're kind of fucked with him. Like,
you just have a really mediocre suit. The ones that kind of get me are the suits where they're mainly like a combat suit, but because you only have one action button, you can't jump with them.
No.
So you'll go through a level where you have to fight 12 sort of really bog standard enemies. You're like, cool, I've got that out of the way. Time to go forward, and you've forgotten that this character can't jump, so you just lurch off a cliff.
Because I think in your brain you just assume that you're going to be able to do both.
Yeah.
Because like why would a developer restrict the mechanics so rigidly? Like what's the benefit of this? I just can't understand it.
Yeah. Like the other suits are going to have better jumping abilities than a regular jump, so just let every fucking character jump.
No, Connor, we have to have the game only have one button because children are morons.
Oh, true. Yeah,
and they've never beat any other complicated game before.
They've never beaten Mario.
Never, not once.
Never, not once. Oh my god! But
it seems very misguided. I don't know. That's the way I always think about it.
Yeah, and it's trying to do like almost a deck buildy thing, but it doesn't have any of the things that people who like deck building games. It doesn't have any of those elements.
On top of being just ungodly slow. Like, doing all this is so annoying. Like, getting all the powers, putting them in your little suit. Only having 3 at a time is really irritating.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where you have, like, 80 costumes to just scroll through and be like, alright, what were the good ones I won? Like, I need Air Cat and a gun one and a jumping one. And it's just not very good flow, basically.
No. And that's like the big Balan gimmick. Like, you were talking about how at 100% you unlock the Balan costume that lets you fly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fun because it's actual freedom in a game that's otherwise quite restrictive.
Yeah.
We had Air Cat and we had the Ice Fairy, which had our mobility options, but the game tries to prevent you from breaking its level design a lot of the time. These things would be a heck of a lot more fun if it kind of embraced the fluency of your movement. It like that would be so much better. It's something that Mario Odyssey, that came out 4 years prior to this, embraced and understood.
And that went really well for it,
Because, I mean, fucking look at 1996, look at Mario 64. What's the thing that was, like, so mesmerizing about that game? It was the fact that you had all these movement things and you could go places.
Well, that's kind of the dichotomy at the very beating core of Balan Wonderworld's problems, is that on one hand, it wants to be a very simplistic, accessible platformer that like young children can play, but then also you have 80 abilities that you have to decide which ones you're going to take into each level.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did you want to have simple level designs with like basic mechanics, but also crazy customization that would benefit from big open levels. Like it doesn't come together in that way.
Yeah.
I don't get why they thought those two elements would go well together.
Exactly. When I think about the visual effects of this game, as well as how the levels are and all the design philosophy and everything like that, this feels like a game that has, you know, an excessive abundance of 3D modelers, a very small pool of level designers, and maybe two people who actually got to design the mechanics, one of which was probably Yuji Naka. You know?
That is what he does. He's a programmer.
Exactly, yeah. Which, to be fair, in terms of game development, you always have an army of 3D modelers now. Like, that's common.
That's how it is.
But it feels
and
like...
if you don't, you outsource it to South Korea or something.
But that's the thing, is that this game seems to almost rely heavily on this ability to be able to make all these things, but it's like, that doesn't make this special. You know?
No.
That doesn't
Especially when the levels don't encourage using them in smart ways, you know?
Yeah, it would be way smarter to cut down the number of suits to maybe 24.
Yeah.
And have 24 distinct, unique things that you can design the levels around. For God's sake, the Metroidvania might be outplayed, but it's fine. It's fine to go, oh, hey, look, I went to a level, I unlocked a new thing, now the next level lets me use it.
And God, you know what the most damning thing about it is as well? Is that in the game, the way it's structured is that you'll go through 2 levels before fighting a boss, and the way you fight the boss is by using costumes from the previous 2 levels.
Yeah.
And you always tend to get free core ones. There's always the 3 that are in both, basically, that you use a lot. Usually with the boss fights, there are 3 methods to attack them, and each one will involve one of the costumes. In some levels, the costumes are so poorly designed that they can only use 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they can't even think of a way to use the 3rd costume for a boss fight, where it's like, then what's the point of having the 3rd costume?
Yeah.
Like, you can't think of a way of using it on the game's actual boss fight, so what's the point of even having it?
Exactly. It's one of those cases where these things really should have hit the cutting room floor, and they didn't. I've heard some people describe the Fox box in particular as feeling like it was designed by someone's 6-year-old son.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, then why did that stay? You know?
I wonder if the problem is that you cut out most of the costumes and they thought, what do you do in this game?
Yeah.
You just go through a bunch of really boring levels and don't do much of any consequence.
Yeah, what's the unique selling point? It's a Yuji Naka
certainly not
game.
the fucking story, I'll tell you that for free.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, I want to talk about the visuals and the music, because he has some things to say about the music.
Oh, yeah. The music kind of... I kind of hate it.
Yeah, so some of the music is alright. I think we actually remembered the boss music being kind of rad, because it was a lot of like heavy like electronic and metal tracks that were actually kind of cool. But the problem with the music is that the game has, I guess I'll call it in the parlance of role-playing games, it has field music and combat music. Like it has the field music, so it's like if you're in the underwater level, there's like a very like do-do-do-do, like that kind of music. And in the circus level, there's clown music and stuff like that. But when you get attacked by an enemy, which happens all the fucking time, they're everywhere all over those levels, it will just cut out the regular music and replace it with the combat music, which is infuriating because the combat music sucks and is annoying.
It really is. It's these bagpipes, it's these chants, they sound like they're saying Caesar.
Yeah, they go, whoo, Caesar!
It's because the world of Balan has this made-up language. It's what everyone's speaking, and it's like even the song lyrics have it.
And like the field of engagement is gigantic, so if you just pass by a single enemy, that music will be playing for like half the entire fucking level unless you kill them.
Yeah. We might have glanced over the combat. I guarantee you there's very little to say.
Yeah.
It's straight...
You jump on them or you shoot them and they die in one hit.
And some of the suits have better ways of doing that than others.
Yeah.
That's not a balance thing. It's an oversight thing.
Yeah, definitely.
At least that's my way of looking at it. But it's really irritating when that happens, because sometimes the overworld music is fine.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's some tracks that I probably couldn't remember, but at the time I thought they were sufficiently jaunty and energetic to make me like enjoy what I was doing with the level.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about the visuals as well, is that what I dislike about the visuals is that the game is very much trying to use the lexicon of performance and dance and theatre. But none of the levels actually feel informed by that. None of them are actually like stage plays or anything that actually represents the Balan circus. They're all just the thing that they are, and then at the end there's a dance, and that's the reason why it's a performance.
Yeah.
Like if it had like a Mario 3 thing going on where the levels had this kind of unifying stage theme that it was like, oh, it's like a recreation of a forest or something like that. But no, it's just you're in a forest in an abstract dream world, and it's like, okay, this isn't cohesive anymore. It's just fantasy levels, and then there's a dance at the end, and that's why it's Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah, exactly. It feels very misguided in terms of its theme and everything like that. Which,
and like a lot of the time, it's just you're in a big platforming level, and then they've put corn everywhere.
Yeah,
or like they've put a dolphin, and that's how you know it's a water level.
Yeah, that like, why is this level called the dolphin and the diver? Oh, because there's the dolphin.
Yeah, and there's some coral.
There's the diver. Yeah, it doesn't feel that great at all. I actually think that some levels do feel a little bit more rushed in terms of their visual design than others.
Yeah, like the chess one or the art one, where it's just a medley of colours that make no sense.
I think the chess one might be the most boring looking one.
The chess one is pretty bad, yeah. It's just like a big open field with a few castles dotted around, and like some chess pieces, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, there's better ways they could have done that aesthetic. You're probably thinking about a chess level now and thinking, oh, black and white checkers everywhere. No.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, but they're very intermittent. I mean, I was thinking about it in comparison to the Queen of Hearts levels from the Alice Man's Returns games, because those are what you should have been doing, where it's much more imaginative.
Oh, yeah.
But this is just like, you're in a big field, idiot. There's some chess over there, what do you think?
Yeah, there's some grass. Yeah. Have fun.
There's 6 grass over there.
But I think visually, it's one of those cases where this game has a pretty good visual fidelity, but not a great visual vision, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't really adhere together in any meaningful way. It just kind of is the thing you'd expect it to be, and not much more than that.
Yeah. 2 of the level themes look almost the same to me. There's 2 that take place in a forest/jungle, and there's not enough there to kind of differentiate them as feeling distinct. Yeah. I'd say one of them looks more interesting than the other, vaguely.
But like, kind of, yeah. Like, just a little bit, by degrees, rather than anything significant.
Exactly. And I suppose with that, do we want to kind of go specifically into these levels?
Trying to think if there's anything else about the mechanics that I want to talk about. Did we talk about the bosses that much?
We've not gone into bosses yet.
Okay.
You mentioned about the bosses. You mentioned about how the bosses have certain ways to kind of beat them to get certain unlockables.
So the thing with the bosses is that each world has its own troubled soul who you're assisting in some way by doing platforming challenges. And when you get to the very end, you see this kind of like context establishing cutscene. Like it's a quite a nice easy cutscene where it's like, for instance, the man who rages against the storm, he's a farmer, he's trying to grow his crops, but a storm destroys all of his harvest, and he becomes so angry that he turns to violence.
Yeah.
And he is kind of possessed by the game's villain, Lance, who like imbues him with like negative energy.
Yeah.
You then fight a kind of idealized fantasy version of his anxiety in this fear, which in this case is a giant wolf.
Yeah, which is resemblant of the tornado wolf, because it's implied that a tornado storm, not really the same thing, but sure. That's what destroyed his crops, and therefore, he embodies that now.
Exactly. And then so the way that you fight them is that you're kind of sent to this arena. It's always an arena, and each costume will have a specific way of defeating that boss. So for instance, the tornado wolf can be used to repel the boss's attacks back at it, which will damage it. The pounding pig, you can like knock columns into it by pounding into them and stuff like that. Yeah. And each way that you do it will give you like a unique collectible and stuff like that.
I think you might actually be able to bring your costumes in, because you mentioned there's always 3 ways to do it, but there's only 2 to pick up. So there's one that you always have to bring in with you.
Oh yeah, and it's like you just have to know.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't tell you can use that one, so you just have to figure it out from context.
Yeah. Like, thankfully, you can use the same motion more than once. The main reason to use all of these different methods is to get more collectibles, which that's kind of the only thing to drive you to not just go from A to B, is that there's possibly collectibles that are hidden around. However, there's one type of collectible that is just incredibly irritating. It's specifically tied to a mini-game called Balan's Bout.
Dude, Balan's Bout. So, the thing with the game, this is the biggest mechanical complaint I heard about this game prior to playing it that wasn't just it's only a one-button game, which is that you need to get enough of these statues of Balan to progress to the next worlds.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you want to unlock worlds 9, 10, 11, and 12, you have to get like 100 Balan statues. Yeah. So you have to go back and just replay levels trying to find as many statues as you can. And one of the ways that you can get them is from Balan's Bout.
Yes.
Which I know this is your favorite part of the game. So if you want to describe it.
Oh yeah, I love Balan's Bout. All right. So you you get taken out of the gameplay and you're forced to watch this cutscene of Balan, who's floating around in a void, punching random rocks.
Yeah, and it's got this really, like, silly music where it's like bum 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 bum.
Yeah, this big, like, jazz swing music that's going around.
And it's like, why is he punching rocks? To what end is he doing this?
Yeah, he's just breaking these dark, sinister-looking rocks, which I guess are encroaching upon the Balan Wonderworld in the same way that the assorted enemies and the villains are.
Stopping a meteorite from hitting the earth or something like that.
But it will then turn out that a sort of brief, transparent image of Balan will show up to go and like line up with him. You need to press one of your buttons like as soon as that lines up for him to successfully break it.
Yeah.
You can deliberately not do this, where he will then stub his toe or go flying,
he'll fuck it up,
or something like that, which is more funny than actually trying to play the thing right, because there's always like 4 or more.
I think it's 4, and then it gets more the further you get into the game. So there's one with like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's a bit like if you play something like Heavy Rain or one of the David Cage games, and you can just deliberately screw up the QuickTime events, because that's what this is. It's a QuickTime event. And I never got to talk about this Resident Evil 4. Massive oversight on my part. I hate QuickTime events. I really don't like them. Sometimes they're very important to a kind of tactile feedback to how like the scene feels, but for the most part, I just am really not fond of this kind of thing. I'd rather have a game that's more like a rhythm game where it's deliberately designed around hitting things to the beat.
Well, I know you hate mashing.
I also hate mashing, because I don't want to get repetitive strain injury. You know, like I really don't want to have that.
You don't want to suffer for your art.
No, I'm here to relax. I'm here to enjoy myself. But here I am with Balan Wonderworld, so maybe I should reassess that.
Yeah.
And depending on how on time you are able to hit these things, which is a bit of an unusual timing in most circumstances, you will get a certain score. You know, it's a much like a rhythm game where there's like perfect, great, okay, fine, and miss. In order to actually get the collectible that you're after in the Balan's Bout, you have to get it perfect every time.
Yeah.
Getting it perfect 4 times and then like getting an okay on the last one.
Or even getting a good.
Yeah.
Like even getting like an okay score.
Yeah. It is the exact same result as deliberately missing all 5 times. Where you will just
Connor, that's not fair. You get more Tim points.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah, you collect Tim points to feed to the Tims. Which just feels like a consolation prize. But it's a massive waste of time. There's these huge build-ups. It's really not interesting to watch. In many cases, the animations are recycled.
Yeah, you can't skip it either.
Yeah, and this feels like the only time in the game where Balan is relevant.
Yeah, this is from our perspective, from our experience of Balan Wonderworld. This is all Balan does.
Yeah,
he just shows up and he punches some rocks and goes "Baga Booey," and then runs off, and then it's up to Emma to go do the actual work.
Yeah, because he doesn't actually do anything with the people who are having these troubles. Same with the protagonist. They just it's ridiculous to me. And
Balan's got the biggest "my work here is done," but you didn't do anything at all.
Yeah. There's one major exception to the kind of weird rock breaking thing in Balan's Bouts, which is that sometimes he will meet his arch nemesis Lance.
Yeah, who I will simply describe as just being evil Balan.
Yeah, he's evil Balan. He's got these black tentacles. He's purple. Sometimes the Balan Bout will be him like fighting. And again, you can deliberately fail those, and it's really funny to just watch him go flying and go, "Oh, you!"
And that's also like the only time Lance is relevant.
Yeah,
he's like the main villain of the story.
Lance doesn't do anything.
No, he's in the Balan Bout.
Yeah, I think he's like the context is that he's the person who's kind of feeding into the anxieties, troubles, and woes. It's almost like he's supposed to be the Emperor Palpatine, who's kind of whispering for them all to become...
He's negative energy, whereas Balan is positive energy.
Yeah. Given that as you go on in every level, more Balan's Bouts become part of the collectibles process, it just gets worse and worse for such an awful part of the game.
And if you fail the Balan Bout, you have to restart the entire level and go back to it. You can't restart it from that instance. You have to do the whole thing again. And it's just like, oh great, time to redo half of this level to get this Balan Bout statue.
Exactly.
And a lot of them are locked behind like quote-unquote difficult platforming mechanics where you have to like find them in the world and then try them and then fail it and then we try again.
You're navigating the level through these secret areas to try and get like a statue so you can progress, and you're like, oh thank god, I'll actually have a way to get this. Oh, it's a Balan's Bout.
Yeah, and then you fail the Balan's Bout.
Yeah,
like, fuck this.
Yeah, right. I went all the way back to get Air Cat again, and went back here 3/4 of the way through the level for a fucking Balan Bout. Like, that's fantastic.
Great, thanks Yuji.
Yeah, it's one of those games where the projected runtime is very artificial in my mind.
Yeah. And it's so annoying because you have to get the Balan statues to power the Balan train. And there's this cutscene where Emma will be on this wonderful winter Wonderworld train. She'll be on the fucking Polar Express drinking hot chocolate. And she's like looking out over the world going, wow! And it's just circling the Isle of Thames.
And then
It's not even going anywhere.
Yeah, and more levels turn up. That's all that happens.
And like every time you do it, it's the same cutscene every time. And every time Emma's like, wow! Norwich!
The World 9 Norwich. Oh my god!
There's like no pizzazz to it. It's like if it was like Crash 2 where you're going to different levels and it's a different area or a different hub world, that would make sense. But she's just always going back to the same place.
Yeah,
there's no actual pizzazz to it. It's just pointless.
It really is. I think it feels very half-baked. Maybe they were going to use the train in a different part of the game or something, but
they made the train cutscene before they realized that wouldn't actually work out.
Yeah, so they had to kind of cobble everything together, which is quite common in game development, but still.
Yeah.
But
we're just enjoying the finished experience. That's all we can talk about.
That we are, and we're going to pretend that it's how every author involved intended it to be.
Yeah.
I feel like it probably wasn't.
Yeah, Yuji Naka was in this fucking strategy meeting, and he was like, "You know, it'd be really good if you got a train to nowhere," and it played 5 times throughout the game,
and they had to be like, "Yeah, that's great."
You got it, boss. Yeah.
I think that we should probably just move on to the levels, I guess.
Alright, should we talk about the 12 worlds of Balan, the 12 troubled souls who must be fixed by Balan?
Yes, that we should. We've already mentioned the man who rages against the storm.
The man who rages against the storm is so fucking iconic.
Yeah.
He's probably the most well-known character from the game other than Balan. Simply because people were posting that image of him dancing at the end of the level.
I've seen a lot of people, I don't know why I've seen this so often. I've seen art of specifically the farmer with Jack Garland from Stranger of Paradise. And I think it's because they're just two angry men.
I'm so happy how many times you've been able to bring up Jack Garland on the podcast in recent weeks.
It's very important.
Yeah. Once again, if you're a Chaos Bro, post in the comments below. Send us your J.O. crystal.
It's never not going to be funny today.
No.
But it's very much the World 1.
Yeah.
I kind of complained that it was a bit bland, and one could say, well, every World 1's kind of got to be like that. And it's like, no, you can make them interesting and compelling.
Yeah.
This case,
they've just not done so in this instance.
No, the main thing that's compelling about it is just this weird farmer man who is a giant when you meet him.
Yeah, and he's got like a wispy little shitty beards, and he wears a big straw hat.
Yeah,
and he's gigantic.
Yeah. But before you get into his boss fight, which is, for the record, Act 3 of the level...
Yeah, so there's 2 levels on the boss fight.
Yeah. You have an opening cutscene that contextualizes who the fuck this guy is. Because for the rest of it, you're just seeing a big farmer around.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what he's doing.
And I feel like this is why this game had such a weird reaction at the start as well. Because obviously that demo came out for the game. That was the first inkling that it wasn't going to be very good. And the game just, like, plops you into the first level. And it's like, here's a giant farmer man.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the cutscene that contextualizes him, and then you do the dance. And people were just like, what is going on? Like, this game makes no sense. Like, they really don't do a good job of layering out that information to the audience in the way that makes it actually make sense what you're doing.
Yeah. The cutscene in particular shows this hard-working farmer who's grown this massive field of corn that then suddenly gets ravaged by a storm, and he ends up kind of like giving into the grief that all of his crops are gone.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
His family will starve to death this winter.
Yeah. And then when you eventually beat him in the boss fight, you have your big musical number, which is...
God, the musical numbers.
Which are hysterical to see. I'm sorry. Like, okay, the first one's hysterical to see.
Yeah, no, they stress me out. Because they made me upset.
There is a particularly priceless reaction to it. I think quite a few people have done it on YouTube. There's one in particular of someone I was watching play the game called Snapcube, who sees the farmer descend from heaven when his boss fight's been completed, opening his eyes as you hear the gobbledygook start singing.
Yeah.
He, like, holds hands with, like, Emma who is about to reach out to one another. They then transported to this floating set of squares in the sky, where a bunch of the animals are just standing there, all in, like, columns. The music swells as they look up, and they start dancing and breaking down to this beat, and you hear the Let's Player just go, no, and starts just losing their shit.
So this is to me is one of the biggest charges you can lay against Balan Wonderworld, beyond its mechanics and all of its other problems, is that it doesn't do a good job telling you why this is happening.
No.
Like, there's nothing about the game that implies that performance is important to resolving these people's concerns, other than that Balan is in a theater.
Yeah.
So you get to the end of a level where you've been doing fairly rote platforming stuff, you fight a boss, and then they just start dancing.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, you don't dance in the levels, there's no elements of performance in the world's environment, so why is the dance important? Like, it never clarifies on that.
It's just a victory dance.
Yeah,
It's just a celebration, and there's no real variation between them. There's like 3 different songs among the 12.
Yeah.
And obviously the costumes are reflective of different animals and different
Yeah.
levels, so as a result, those are different, but the setup's never different. The weird floating platforms isn't distinct to the man who rages against the storm.
All 12 levels are the exact same. You go into the level, there's a giant person staring at you. You do 2 levels on the boss, and then you see a CG cutscene of what their problem is, and then a CG cutscene of you fixing it.
Could you imagine if Clock Tower ended like this?
I wish Clock Tower ended
Like
like this.
at the end of every level, you do a little dance with the blind old lady. And
I mean, it would have been just as jarring.
Yeah.
Because there's no setup for this. Like, none of these ideas have any connective tissue. It's just you do levels and then there's dancing.
Yeah.
Ugh, it makes me annoyed.
It would be great.
Yeah.
But I think just because of the title, because it's kind of the first taste of this kind of thing, I'm very fond of Farmer Ted.
Yeah.
As the grand lady herself, Snapcube says, has christened him.
Fuck it up, Farmer Ted.
Which again, I think his name is like Juan Nomez or something, but I
don't know any of their names.
Yeah, you'll find out in the book. We'll talk about that later. Which we then jump into the second level, which is disappointingly just called The Dolphin and the Diver.
Yeah, and The Dolphin and the Diver has a very confusing storyline where it's about this girl who is a deep sea diver who swims with dolphins.
Yeah.
And she's swimming with a dolphin and she's having a wonderful time, and they look longingly into each other's eyes in a way that's slightly disconcerting. And then, like, I think the implication is that there's some kind of incident caused by the dolphin, like the dolphin attacks her or something.
Yeah, I think the dolphin attacks her, and it's a very ominous image of her sinking into the depths with hands going over her, and the dolphin's got glowing red eyes like a fucking.
And it cuts to her sitting alone in a dark room, and she's like tore up a picture of her and the dolphin, like it's in the bin. Like she's been dumped or something.
I think the implication is that that's hospital, but it's the fact she had this picture and she tore it.
And just like, I hate you, dolphin, you suck.
I can just picture the doctor's going, sorry, Diver, you have a visitor, and Lance just floats in going, hey,
what do you think?
I can make you into a big pompadour penguin.
And like her level is very obviously all the theming is about water, and it's like there's like coral and like water jets that you can travel through. And I remember this level sucking
really hard.
I remember it's it's not complicated, but it's just very confusing to kind of navigate through. Like you're using a lot of water jets to go up to different verticalities and stuff like that, and it's just kind of tedious and ugly and not very appealing in any sense of the word.
I didn't like this level. I found it very awkward with the suit gimmicks and everything like that.
It's like you get like a dolphin suit.
Yeah.
And...
Sorry to tangent as well, but like the fact that it's very much costumes of these existing animals, some of them do look really good and others of them are kind of disturbing. Like some of them look like a really bad theme park mascot. There are other outfits that are kind of look like they're designed to incorporate elements of the character onto Emma and
You always
Leo.
have Emma's dumb face poking out of the costume, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Like there's a couple of them that look really good and others of them that just look fucking stupid. But the storyline of that one after fighting her and that kind of thing, it just ends with her going back onto a boat, seeing a dolphin, and the dolphin looks kind of sad, and she's like, "Let's be friends. Let's like, hang out.
We can repair our broken relationship, you and me, dolphin. We can swim again once more.
Finally,
we can kiss."
It just feels like history's going to repeat itself. Because dolphins are kind of bastards. I don't know what's so different now.
It's one of those things in which it's trying to convey a story with very few, with a very short runtime and no words. And in this instance, I feel like they failed to convey what was actually going on. Yeah. Because from what we can tell, it's just a girl swam with a dolphin, she got hurt, and then she went back to swimming with dolphins.
Yeah. Oh, we never concluded Farmer Ted, because Farmer Ted's a bit more clearer, which is that he recovers, he looks out at his field and finds a single grand kind of like plant of corn. So he's like, oh my god, something survived, you know?
And it's just like, did we do that? Is that because of the dance? Is that because we got 15 Balan statues in his world?
Yeah, like...
Would that not have happened if we weren't there? Like...
Yeah, is it Balan's magic retroactively
yeah.
making these things better? Which, there's some more, like, outlandish examples of this that we'll get into.
Like, are we channeling Balan's energy? Did Balan do anything? Because, like, Balan's always, like, in the background of these cutscenes where he's like, my work here is done, and then he walks off mysteriously. It's like, what did you do, Balan?
Oh, yeah, in the Dolphin and the Diver, he's just swimming in the background.
Yeah,
it's like, did you not want to prevent this?
And then fuck him up, Farmer Ted. He's just a scarecrow.
Yeah. Which I think that's a cute nod, but nah. You know,
that one's cute. Yeah,
like I like that one.
It's just very unclear what Balan's actually doing.
Yeah.
Like, what is it his power that's making the lives better for these people? Is it what Emma is doing? Is it the dance? Like, it's very unclear.
I'm very curious if this was meant to be even more like Knights, which was that at some point in the levels you become Balan and then you play as Balan for the boss fight and have more direct.
I also think it would make more sense if you were going into their dreams and then you were maybe resolving their anxieties with this dance, and then it would give them the energy to go back to their lives and try again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really do that. It just implies that you just fix it with magic.
Oh yeah, Psychonauts is not.
No.
Or even Klonoa for that matter. But the third level has one of my favourite names.
The third level has got a great name.
It is The Girl Who Is Gaga for Bugs.
In the cutscene, you won't believe this. It shows a girl who is Gaga for bugs.
She's got a bunch of little terrariums of little bugs that she's kind of enjoying. She's nurturing them. She's fascinated by them,
and then she is besought upon by the shadow children.
Like her peers in presumably school are looking through the windows at her, and like every time they see what she's looking at, they get scared. They run away. And it kind of implies that she's shunned by so many people that she ends up. Oh Christ, I've forgotten the name. Reclusing, you know, into...
She isolates herself.
Yeah, isolating herself into just being surrounded by her insects, and it shows this big metaphor of her being wrapped up in a cocoon into that sort of thing, which, like, it's not a bad visual.
No. This is one of the ones where they actually nailed the visuals, like the performance element of it, because when you do free her from her concern, she grows butterfly wings.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's like the wings represent freedom and, like, confidence and stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, none of them really do that. Like, the dolphin one is just the dolphin just looks happy.
Yeah.
And that's the only visual cue that you get.
Yeah. I feel bad for her because she's kind of being judged for something that's just who she is, you know? Yeah. It really sucks that that's what happens with her, and I can kind of relate in a lot of ways. But at the same time, the eventual message is a little bit odd. I think but it's still... It's
because the way that you resolve it is that she just gets the confidence to show one of the bugs to some people and they like it.
Yeah, but specifically it's a pretty bug.
It is a pretty bug.
Because as part of the metaphor, she sprouts butterfly wings and then kind of like breaks apart the webs that surround her.
Yeah, it's like she's metamorphosized into a more confident, beautiful person.
Yeah, and then she shows these kids a butterfly and they're like, wow, that's a really cool butterfly. And then it's like, and they all...
And then she's like, check out this tarantula.
Yeah.
The cycle begins anew.
That's what it feels like. Same with the dolphin. It's like, is she going to have the confidence to stand her ground and go, well, those people aren't going to be my friends?
Yeah.
Is it going to be that she'll find a way to more directly communicate? No. Like, these are still little
Because I like to think that the reason is that she's being given the confidence to actually be who she wants to be.
Yeah.
But the game doesn't do a very good job of conveying that. Like, sometimes it's really clear, like, there's ones later on where that seems to be the message. But then other times it's just like, she just is good with dolphins now.
Yeah.
There's some grain that wasn't there before. Like, if the arc of the Farmer Ted one was that he became inspired to begin work anew, that would make more sense thematically, but it's not. It's just that there is corn there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird one, but I want to briefly mention that the environment for this one is like... It's like the inside of a great big tree.
Yes.
Like, you're kind of enraptured in this great big wooden world where there's fireflies and little glowing plants and stuff.
And I think one of the costumes is that you do get a firefly that you can use to light up lamps, and that will do things in the level for you.
Yeah, I think that's what it does.
It's been a while.
I'm not sure if that's the one that just glows, but I think it does have an actual impact.
And then you get the spider as well.
Yeah, well, the spider's really useful because it climbs, but... only in certain places.
Only when there's webs, exactly.
Which is like...
all of the powers are very measured like this. They're always, you can use it when we want you to.
Yeah, which then explains why you find spiders' webs fucking everywhere. Yeah, you're like, oh, right, okay, there we go.
Even though they are kind of like part of the visual theming of that level, so when you see them everywhere, they look a bit out of place.
Yeah, it's the same with like the weird cog thing I mentioned earlier, which we'll fucking get to that, but... Jumping into World 4?
I hate World 4. I hate the boy from World 4.
The World 4 has one of my favourite outfits, but It's called The Boy Who Would Be One with the Wind.
Which, is respectable. That's a valid wish to have.
I like the name. The idea of it is it's this boy who lives on a floating island and he's trying to learn how to make a flying machine.
Yeah, he's like a protagonist of a Ghibli film.
Yeah, that's how it feels. And it does have a certain sense of whimsy. He's trying to build these contraptions. They always fail. And it seems like just the consistent failure of everything blowing up in his face is what kind of causes him to turn.
Yeah.
But then the result of that is that he just gets better and goes, cool, I've thought of a new design and it works.
There's also one particular element of the level which I would like to talk about here, is that we got stuck on the second level.
Oh, we
because
did.
The thing you have to do is to know... There's like a whale floating about in the background.
Yeah.
And you have to jump on the whale.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about this. But yeah, we got stuck on that for a while. Because it's one of those cases where it looks like a background element. It looks like something you won't reach. And
it looks like even if you would just slide off it.
Yeah. On the one hand, I admire the idea of having an environment that kind of encourages you to just experiment what's around it. But Balan doesn't.
Yeah, no, Balan has not encouraged that behavior over the course of its previous 3 levels. So it's just like, why would I think to do that, Balan?
I didn't particularly like this as a world. I like the sheep outfit.
Yeah, the sheep outfit is cool.
The sheep outfit is very cute.
Lets you bounce, right? Or like you kind of like float along.
You glide.
Yeah, you glide.
Yeah. So before we got Aircat, that was another go-to one.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I remember it so vividly. But it's not one of my favorites.
I like some of the visual elements. Like there's like big bikes everywhere and like things that children would use to play and stuff. And that's kind of a cool visual.
It feels like a good aesthetic for a Spyro level.
Yes, it does, yeah. In a game that has a much stronger vision of what its art needs to be, that level would be good, but it's not. It's in Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah, it's in Balan Wonderworld, which is kind of what we'd have to say about a lot of the strengths, I feel like, in this game.
Yeah.
World 5, the lady filled with avian adoration.
Yeah, so this one's stupid. There's a lady who loves birds. She has adoration for avians, as you might do if you loved birds. And then she's looking at these birds, and then suddenly these construction guys just come and tear down the entire forest.
Yeah.
And she's just sitting there like, bruh, I was here. You could have killed me.
Yeah, and the eventual arc of that one is that she just goes to the construction workers and says, hey, if you're going to build a city here, put places for birds to live in it, like plant trees.
Go, yeah. This is the one. This is another one which raises the question: did Balan do that?
Yeah.
Like, what was our role in that?
Yeah, it feels like the Gaga for Bugs Girl kind of was self-realization.
Yeah.
For Farmer Ted, it was more seeing a light in the darkness. Yeah. In this one, it's a case of like, oh, cool, you're an activist now. You've done something directly.
Yeah. But I feel like that lady would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what about us dancing near her gave us the confidence to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe it was that she was so afraid, like it seemed hopeless, which is kind of what I assume what all of these are trying to communicate, but it's never...
It's very muddy.
Her level...
It's the one that's the most similar to Gaga Girl. Like, it's just a kind of forest.
Yeah, it's a forest with lots of tall trees. It's instead of it being inside of a big tree, it's like going between several big trees.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I remember not particularly caring for this one.
No. We did the game in 3 sessions and we played 4 worlds per session.
Yeah.
So I think this is the first time we returned to Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah.
And I think it was the first time we were playing in my dumb student room.
Yeah.
So we were a little rambunctious while playing it. We were kind of sitting on the bed just like, oh, this level's just the 3rd level again. What the hell?
We weren't that enamored by the game. We were just dying of heat stroke.
And also it kind of seemed like it was going to start repeating themes, which is just like, oh god, it hasn't even got 12 unique levels.
Oh my... Yeah, no, that filled us with a certain sense of dread.
Yeah, that made us become despondent. We needed Balan to dance near us.
Yeah.
Been restored.
I barely remember the suits for this one either.
Yeah.
This isn't a game where you can fly.
No.
This isn't a game that does anything that birds can do.
No. Yeah, so it's dull. Yeah.
But I think the weird takeaway I had to this level was that as I was playing it, it was making me think back on Hyrule Warriors. Because...
Oh yeah, it reminds me of the levels when you're going to go save the Deku people and you're in the trees and you have to stop all the spiders from attacking.
That's what I was thinking of the whole time we were playing it. Like, that's really it. And that's not even a unique...
and in Balan, you don't even mow down 1,000 moblins. So what's even the point?
I think every game should have a Musou spin-off at some point.
Definitely. Dude, Balan, Musou spin-off. God.
This is also the point where I was realizing the songs were repeating and I was like, oh, well.
Right, yeah. We'll just be doing this for the next 7 levels and then we'll die.
Yeah.
Great.
But we have a pretty big pick-me-up as we go into the 6th level, which is The Girl and the Kitten.
It's a boring name, so we were a little down on it from the beginning.
Yeah.
But actually, the aesthetics here are probably some of the strongest in the game.
Yeah. It's this mixture of weird kind of like cogs, of this kind of very whimsical, in the sky, fairy tale look with this sort of Victorian aesthetic.
It very much looks from the games, or from this level's CGI opening, that it's set in a kind of fantasy London.
The story of this one being this little girl has a kitten that fucking dies.
Yeah, the kitten gets run the fuck over.
Yeah.
There's like a freeze frame in her opening cutscene where it's like her like going no, and there's a cat being knocked down by a car, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, there's some ones in the previous stories we've had which kind of imply a certain sense of destruction or being harmed or that kind of thing. This is straight up grieving now. This is someone you loved fucking died.
Yeah.
She has every reason to be upset.
Yeah.
I totally get why she gets manipulated. It's very sad.
But then this level has the best suite of costumes in the game, I would say.
It has Aircat.
It has Aircat, who has the incredible ability to just float, to glide across the world, which is amazing. It also has Chrono Rabbit.
Yeah, there's a few of these mirrors where when you step through them as Chrono Rabbit, the time freezes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of... and if you swap out of the suit, time no longer freezes, but you can use that to your advantage to be like, cool, I'm in this zone that's meant to be frozen.
Yeah.
I'm going to swap out, everything's moving again. I'm then going to go back, turn into Chrono Rabbit, the rest of the world's now frozen.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit more creative with this puzzle solving.
Yeah,
it feels...
definitely.
I don't think any other level in the game has something like this. It's kind of neat.
I would say that the girl and her kitten is the best level in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it does have the gear stuff.
The gear stuff sucks. I hate how the gear suit looks.
Yeah, and it's really slow as well.
The finale to the boss fight and the kind of resolution to this being, Kitten's just alive again.
Balan rewinds time. Like,
does.
the other ones is just you got the confidence to do something you were already going to do, or you get some grain.
Yeah.
Kitten Girl gets the ability to rewind time, and she sends time back so she can save her kitten.
She uses Bites the Dust to do what every TTS fan wants, which is to resurrect Kitten.
Nice.
And ensure that the
Is that the name of the podcast, The Girl and Her Kitten?
Oh my god, we could.
We could do that, yeah.
That has to be Balan. Otherwise, is it a misunderstanding? Does the cat just get hurt when it gets hit by a car?
No, because the cutscene, you can see time rewinding, like the clock goes back. So he is rewinding time.
Okay.
Yeah.
To resurrect it, which is like, okay.
Yeah.
Now we've gone from characters sort of realizing these things by themselves, and maybe Balan being a metaphor to, nah, this guy's just fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Which is a case of like, why the fuck did you bring back one corn?
Couldn't you have brought back all the corn?
You could have brought like seeds or something more poignant than just here's one gleaming corn.
Yeah. Don't know what Kitten Girl did to get that, but it's just clearly connected.
Yeah, you could have regrown the rainforest, Balan.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
What the fuck, Balan?
No, don't worry. Neville Longbottom came in and broke all the time turners after this happened, so he couldn't do it again afterwards.
Don't worry. It makes total sense.
World 7.
There's 6 more fun worlds to go, so...
Oh boy. Oh, and this one, you've probably seen clips about this on the internet if you know Balan. The former champion who is stuck in the past.
This is the stupidest level in the game. I hate this one.
You put little subtitles to these names, and the one for this one is just kill a child.
Kill the child, yeah. So this one's story is just meaningless. Like, it's just Mauled. It's just, there's a guy who's good at chess, and then he loses a game of chess, so he becomes evil.
Yeah.
And then the resolution to his story is that he plays chess and he's not evil. It's fucking a pointless, dumb story that means nothing.
Okay, this is the way I'm trying to twist this. I think the point of this is this guy loses chess and he doesn't want to blame it on himself. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to go, I lost fair and square. He's just like, everything's right with me. How dare anyone think this?
Yeah.
And he's thinking of giving up the entire hobby because it's like rage quitting the game, right?
He throws all of his chessboards out the window.
Yeah. He then calms the fuck down, goes downstairs, picks up the pieces, and then finds on the street this child who's picked up all the other ones and gone like, oh yeah, here you go. He then presumably teaches the child how to play chess.
And it reminds him of the joy of playing chess. But the thing with this one is that the story is entirely contiguous.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like there's like a period of time where there's a gap where our intervention makes sense.
Yeah.
It's he loses at chess, he throws all of his chess pieces out the window, and then that child immediately finds them and gives them back to him, and then that plays out like that.
Yeah.
So he was mad about chess for about 5 seconds. And then it gets resolved completely naturally and organically. And it's like, what did we do? Kitten Girl got the power to rewind time. This guy just had life happen as it was going to happen anyway. Like, it's pointless. It's a waste of everyone's time.
I think it's also important that in that final cutscene where he's teaching the kids how to play chess, there's one very important frame where if you miss it, you get an entirely different message from this.
Yeah.
So he's playing chess with this kid. This kid is struggling to beat him, and he kind of realizes this thing about the joy of chess, and then deliberately loses. He moves a piece in a certain direction to ensure the kid wins, to kind of like teach him how to play the game. if you miss that split-second bit, it just looks like he plays chess against this kid and beats him and feels better.
It's like, I own you, kid.
That's what it looks
And then the kid has these 2 girlfriends that show up, and he's like, all right, you fuckers, I'm gonna beat your asses too.
Yeah, it's fucking great. It's one of the
the chess guy. He annoys me.
He seems the least deserving of having this intervention, which again, I understand being an angry guy and getting annoyed at stuff.
I do often call you the angry gamer.
But at the same time, bro, get over it. That's what he does. He just gets over it. He calms down. He gets over it
almost immediately as well. There's no pause or break in it. He's just like, yep, I'm over it.
It takes about 5 seconds to imagine himself being a funky chess piece boss and getting beaten up by Emma Cole, and that's how he recovers.
Which is what we all want in our lives. Yeah.
Anyway, the aesthetics for this level is the worst one in the game.
It is. It's just a big empty field with occasional chess decorations.
And it's the one that has the most apparent rolling terrain thing.
Yeah, it gave me a bit of a headache, honestly. Yeah. It's really not pleasant to look at.
I don't know if I want to say this is the worst one, but this is in the lower rungs.
This is definitely one of the lower Balan worlds.
I think his story is funny because it doesn't work. But I think that the
actual level is dreadful. Yeah.
Also, the name is alright.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's better than the girl and her kitten, but it's nowhere near as good as the girl who was Gaga for bugs.
Yeah, that's still the king. I think. We now get to World 8, which I've immediately forgotten what this is, but now I've glanced at the notes and now I know.
World 8 is the woman who is afraid to love.
Oh yeah. So have you ever seen Frozen?
Yeah, dude. So there's a cool ice goth girl who's got cool hair.
Yeah.
And she's got a loving family with her 2 parents and her beautiful fiancé, who is a chunky man with a big jaw.
Who looks suspiciously like the guy who beat the chess man.
Very suspiciously, yeah. Very suspiciously. And then, I kid you not, the girl's parents just both die. It's not explained how they die. It just cuts to her standing by 2 graves crying, and then the story is that she locks herself away in her home and refuses to speak to anyone because she's so sad about her parents' death. Which, valid, fair. Yeah. And then obviously we dance near her and she's fine.
She then goes outside, hugs her husband, and
marries Chess Chad,
whose wedding is being officiated by Balan.
Yeah, Balan is an officially ordained priest.
That's his background detail in that level. All right, that girl got her kitten back.
Yeah, that woman doesn't get her parents back.
No,
she just gets to marry someone she was already engaged to.
It's like Chess Guy, the moral is get over it.
Yeah. Just get over it, idiot.
Move on.
Maybe you have to be a little girl to get the good shit.
Maybe,
because that's going to damage you psychologically.
Yeah, it's more formative. Not like losing your parents would also be formative to your life at any point.
Nah, get over it, bro.
Yeah.
So there are 2 gimmicks to the Ice World level. The first of which is ice physics.
Yay.
And the second of which is sledding. So you're going down little pipes and then you have to jump over obstacles and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a seal suit that makes you slide down them, I think, easier or quicker or something.
This is also where you get the second air cat, which is it's like air cat, but it gives you height as you move, which is really useful.
It's like frostbite or frost fairy. Yeah, frost fairy.
Yeah.
Which again, it's well, there you go. You've got your 2 players of the game.
Yeah.
Goats.
There's also the third secret mechanic that we had, which was playing the Switch version, where the ice level runs like complete shit and looks awful.
Oh yeah. So enemies might spawn, the game will freeze just as you're sliding towards the edge, and you might just die.
Oh, dreadful! Absolutely horrid.
Which, to be fair, I've heard performance isn't that great in the other ports either, so it could be a Balan-wide issue. But
Balan-wide. This is an issue that's affecting the entire Wonderworld.
The entire Wonderworld.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I address this brief tangent? We kept calling this game Balan Wonderland
every
for the longest time.
Yeah.
Because it flows better off the tongue.
No, Balan Wonderworld is annoying to say.
Yeah, it is. You have to pause.
Yeah.
To kind of say it, and it doesn't quite work, I think. Also, Balan Wonderland.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I splitting?
The word's not balanced.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. So, do you want to officiate us through the next world?
Yeah, I get to talk about the last 4 worlds, which all suck.
I'd say they get worse as they go on.
Yeah, they do. So the next one has kind of a cool aesthetic. It's about a clown who falls in love with a princess. So the clown works at a theme park, and he loves entertaining the children and riding the rides, but he's joined by this princess, and he falls in love with her. He has all these memories of them spending time together, but sadly, his station in life will not allow him to marry the princess, for he is a lowly clown. Until he gets over it.
He's just like, you know what? Fuck feudalism.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
ask out the princess, and they fall in love, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful time.
The entire time, the clown is in like the full clown getup and a big suit and everything for the whole thing. So it's goofy looking and everything like that. But then you get to beating his boss fight, and he just takes the mask off, and he's a beautiful bishy boy.
He's a beautiful bishy boy. He's so wonderful. He's so kissable. Like, you want to give him a kiss on the lips. He's got this like green hair.
Yeah,
it's like a Fire Emblem character.
This is not the first time that Balan pulls this trick, by the way. But
No.
more on that later. But for one, I feel like a circus aesthetic in this game was going to be inevitable.
Yeah, definitely.
You look at Knights and you look at even Sonic, and it's gonna happen. And I do like it for that. I've always liked this look in games because I'm one of the few people on Earth who's not afraid of clowns, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Connor's a huge clown fan.
I think they're funny. Sorry, hold on a second. I've been to performances that are about clowns, that are proper theatre production things, where they're actually funny. People are always like, oh, clowns are stupid, why would anyone like them? Like, good comedy's good comedy, right?
Yeah, I was having a moment where I was over at my parents for Christmas and we were watching a Cirque du Soleil show. And my dad was like, this isn't the one with the good clowns.
Okay, I'm very curious which one he means, because I've seen the other side of that that's called Cirque de Glace, which is Cirque of Ice or Cirque of Winter, and that one has a ringmaster who doubles as a clown who's in between all the acts, and he also has good comedy. I remember that really vividly. Like, there was another one called Slava Snow Show, I believe it's from sort of Eastern Europe / Russia.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah. That one I really liked.
That one's got a lot of really good audience interaction.
Yes.
That's what I recall about it.
Yes. There's one gag in particular I love where the entire point is this clown sitting on it's a weird clown tangent, sorry. He's sitting on this chair that's on the wonk, and there's a table with a phone that's next to him, and he just keeps trying to reach for the phone, and every single time he does, the chair falls in the other direction, and it will fade to black, and it just within like a second he'll be back in the same pose. And it's like, how the fuck did you do that? Like,
well, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the Patreon Clown Minute.
Yeah, man, this is gonna be our public clown hour.
For you. Anyway, Connor, please, you're interrupting my important work.
My world in Wonderworld would be the boy who is Gaga for clown. The content creator that is cuckoo for clowns. There we go. I've done it.
Mine would be the girl who has to listen to your bullshit.
Fire Yuji Naka and hire me.
They did, well, they didn't fire you, but they did fire Yuji Naka.
Let me make Balan Wonderworld 2,
baby. I will become the CEO of Balan Company and I will fire all my employees.
And then I'll inside a trade.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Sorry, please.
You're getting in the way of my great work, Connor, which is to discuss episode 9 of Balan Wonderworld, The Artist with Painter's Block.
Yes, sorry, episode 10?
Episode 10.
Please, tell me about the least favourite level in the game.
The details I've written here, I've just written the words stupid, idiot, terrible, dumb. This entire storyline is just there's a woman who paints and then she gets artist block and then she doesn't. She gets over it.
Oh my god, yeah. This is the worst communicated one of them all. It shows her painting a bunch of things and then being in a gallery and a bunch of board game meeples watching the painting.
Which is there's only 2 worlds in the entire game that have the meeples rather than NPCs, and it's this one and the clown one.
Like, in other cases, it's fully modeled people, which feels like a weird budget cut thing, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, she paints more and more paintings, and less people see them, and then the paintings just get worse, and she's like frantically painting, and nothing happens, then she gets sad and becomes a big paint monster. I think she becomes a squid. Red Splatoon.
This level is just like a bunch of random squares thrown haphazardly around with no real rhyme or reason to them. They were just trying to navigate.
Well, one of them has a little bit more direction to it, because one of them is specifically meant to be like an MC Escher painting.
Yeah.
That's neat, but it's not fun to navigate.
It's just very discordant and jumbled up and chaotic in a way that's just like, and especially when you're on level 10 of 12 of Balan Wonderworld, and you're just like, let me go through this level, please.
Can I just finish this?
Yeah.
I might want to mention about the circus level as well. That's the one that had the most gimmicks. There was like weird slide rails.
There was like a cart that you had to ride, and light shows and that you had to do and stuff like that. Like it was very, very dense.
Yeah, I feel like both of these levels took a long time. The clown one, it was particularly that there was too much to go through.
Yeah.
And the painter one, it was that you were in such a small space that was just hard to get through, you know? This was like wearing us down. We were getting so tired of this.
We were in my stupid hot student room and it was boiling and we were just playing Balan. Like,
The way that the story of the painter lady ends is that she looks at one of her paintings and goes, "Oh yeah, color exists."
Yeah, all right, yeah.
And then just paints more.
I'll just simply get over painter's block.
Yeah. Okay, that's the thing about the name as well. The name, what is it? The artist?
The artist with painter's block.
Which, why isn't it the painter with artist block?
Because this is a magical world of wonder in which the rules are bent upside down and nothing is as it seems.
Yeah, it just feels like a weird one to do for...
Anyway, the next level is the firefighter who puts out fires.
Is that what it's called?
No, it's not. It's called the firefighter who wants to be a hero. But the entire story is that he is a firefighter and then he puts out a fire.
Yes. It shows him dreaming of being a great hero, and
Yeah.
then he's in his training academy with a big gleamy smile on his face.
He's like a beautiful bishy boy. He's like glowing. He's got this like shine coming off of him.
He is. He
Yeah.
really is. Fucking Fireman Sam over here.
Yeah.
Then has to confront a real fire, sees someone dying in it, and goes like, okay, I'm gonna go get him, run through the door, everything's on fire, and he's like, oh no.
Yeah, but it's not like his fear causes him to fail to save someone or to stop to put out this fire. Because the story then pauses, you do the level, and then you just give him the confidence to do it the first time. So there's not even any like consequences or stakes to it. It's just he just does it.
I'm also not against the idea of having a level whose message is, have more self-confidence in yourself, be bold, be brave. We've had levels that have this already.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it just cuts itself off and he does the thing anyway.
Yeah, like it just feels disconnected from what you're doing. It just feels like your actions didn't really mean anything to the story. You know?
Yeah. As a kid's game, it would be way too dark to have a theme or a level where it's all about the fear of failure of someone who might have imposter syndrome, who wants to reach this ideal but's not actually qualified to do it and isn't really cut out to be a firefighter. Maybe that's an angle that could have been done. But
well, then if you're not going to do that, then don't show up to the competition.
Yeah.
Like, don't make a game about self-doubt.
Yeah.
It's like, is a kid going to have any sympathy or any empathy for a firefighter who's scared of fire? It doesn't seem well thought out in that sense.
This also was one of the levels that had some of the most stupid gimmicks.
Yeah.
It had the
level's really boring because it's just like a plain Jane Mario fire level.
Yeah, it's very grey. It's all boxed
it's like
up.
you're like in a volcano and there's this flame everywhere and it's not very appealing.
One of the gimmick suits is that you have a bulldozer and you slowly push blocks.
It's so slow as well.
And another one is that there are these areas that are full of lava and you become a hose a hydrant, and you shoot bits of water that freeze the lava until you get to the switch in a level that turns all the lava off anyway.
Yeah. And like it's very janky as well because you're shooting out the lava, but like all the water to freeze it, but it doesn't work the way that you expect it to.
Yeah, and I have to posit this question: is there any other part in this game where that particular water mechanic or the pushing block mechanic is in any other part of the game?
No, there's not.
Yeah, no, not really, unless we've missed something, which I don't think we did. We had to scour these levels to fucking finish the game.
Yeah, we did. We have to go back to them to get the fucking statues, which is really tedious.
Yeah, but it's very bland. I don't like this one.
Very bland.
Nah, I might posit this being my least favourite, full stop.
Yeah, I think for me it's between the artist level, the chess level, and this level. They're all very forgettable. Although I am forgetting about the next level. The man who picks up garbage and doesn't get appreciated for it.
Oh, it's funny that you forget it because that's the whole point of this one.
Yeah, the man seen by no one. So the story here is that there's a man who's picking up garbage. And it turns out that people are not very nice and they put down more garbage and they don't say thanks for him picking up the garbage.
Yeah, he picks up all the garbage in the street, then night falls, he comes back and it's full of garbage again.
Hey, listen, man, that's keeping you employed.
One, that's cities.
Yeah.
That's what people are like. It sucks that they litter, but the message feels more like people should respect their surroundings more. And they should respect the hard work of someone who does this kind of community service, like that kind of thing. But
it's very muddled once again.
Is the angle meant to be that he doesn't feel recognized because that's why he's an invisible man?
Yeah.
Like I guess that's it. And like he does get recognition, someone finally notices, that kind of thing. Also, there's like a weird Michael Jackson angle. Because he's the invisible man and he has the hats that Michael Jackson has and all this stuff. But the level has the least to do with anything.
I don't even remember what the level is.
It's like a weird Matrix world with a green and black grids. And you have these bunch of these moving platforms, like being invisible. Like I think it like lets you walk through walls, I think. This one had the least direction of anything.
Had very little going on,
Yeah. And then, he recovers from that, and then we get to the final level, the culmination of everything. Once we ride the Balan train for the last time and step through the big fucking portal of purple goo.
Yeah, it's cool because the hub world is a big circle, and around the circle is each level, although they aren't in order, which is really irritating.
No, they're not.
And then when you get to the final one, you open up this big void portal into a purple demon world, and that's where you fight Lance.
Yeah, I was getting Klonoa vibes at this point.
Yeah, I was getting like Kingdom Hearts vibes, but that's
the door. That makes sense. you step forth to go and face the mastermind behind this all, the person feeding into everyone's anxieties and preying on each of their moments of vulnerability. Lance, who is a guy.
He's a guy. He's Balan, but he's bad.
He throws some goop guys at you. Yeah. You fight them with your suits. And then Lance is like, well, now you've had it now. And he takes your suits away and becomes a big fucking dragon.
Yeah.
Like, he becomes a...
It's actually kind of like... You know how in Mario Odyssey there's that one level where you fight like a Dark Souls dragon?
Yeah.
Like, it has that similar energy where it goes really hard. Like, it's actually a pretty, like, metal design.
It's a cool design. Yeah. And then Leo/Emma, you know, your player character, is like... There's a brief moment where they're actually starting to kind of build up some, like... defiance of their own. Like, they step up and clench their fist and go and face him without any outfits, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and see Balan, who's like, hey, here's all the people that you saved. They're all going to cheer you on. And they turn into the different suits from the levels, which in some cases they turn into the best suits in the game. Air Cat and Frost Fairy are some of them.
Yeah.
But in another circumstance, it's like, oh, I'm the chess
fire
piece.
Hydrant or like the dumb boulder, and it's just like, oh
like,
no,
oh god,
is this all you've got to offer me, chess guy? You piece of shit.
I have to be the quad shooter, and those are the only suits that you get for this big boss fight at the end. Yeah. Where you beat that fight, Lance then comes back, but he's white.
Yeah, so you've like knocked off his mask.
Yeah.
And you're seeing what his face actually looks like. And it isn't that he is a weird hat person, he's just a guy wearing a hat.
Yeah.
And he's like this like really pretty anime boy with like luscious lips and long flowing hair.
Yeah.
And it's kind of implied that Lance isn't necessarily a bad person. Like he's just kind of like, he's out of balance as well.
Yeah.
And at this point, I thought, or I presumed, that the plot line was going to be that we restore balance to Lance and make him a good guy again.
Yeah.
No. The spirits of hell awaken and open up a portal to the very inner reaches of the abyss. Yeah. And they drag Lance down into endless torment, presumably.
Yeah.
Like Lance just gets fucking yeeted out of space and everyone's like, yay!
Yeah, we got him. Fuck that guy. And I'm just going to say justice for Lance.
Yeah, what the hell? What was going on with Lance? Why did they kind of humanize him at the end just for him to be dragged down into hell? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like,
it's so weird.
You could have a redemption arc. It doesn't seem like he's naturally evil.
Yeah.
He seems like just as much of a victim of the shit as the 12 people, but not...
And like the whole point is that you're meant to restore balance, but you don't restore balance. You just kill him. He's gone.
I'm very curious if we've missed some kind of super secret ending.
No, I looked it up. There is no further Lance resolution. Lance is just gone.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, good job, game.
We killed him. And then all the people are like, they all crowd around Balan, and like Farmer Ted shakes his hand, and like, Balan sheds a tear. And it's like, Balan didn't do shit.
No, he didn't.
His unpaid intern children did everything for him, and they don't even get to barely feature in that cutscene at all.
And they rock up, they leave.
Yeah, they all return to their respective dimensions.
The Leo and Emma like hug Balan.
Yeah, and he reveals that he is also a hot anime boy.
Yeah, he takes his hat off where he has this fluffy green hair and all this stuff. He looks exactly like Lance, which is like, funny that.
Yeah.
Before throwing them back into the doors out to their homes, and which
he does cry a single emerald tear as well.
He does. Yeah. Because we chose Emma, we'll tell you Emma's ending of
Emma's
this case.
ending is fucking stupid. Like Emma goes back to her house and like she opens the door and she waves to her servants and they're whispering. They're like, hoo, 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 hoo.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh no, nothing's changed. But then she goes through this door and they throw in like a huge surprise party and there's like a cake with her face on it and like her two friends are there who we've never seen before.
Yeah.
But the two things here is that one, the implication is that the entire point is that her servants were whispering because they were trying to plan her party.
Yeah.
Like it was all in her head.
Yeah.
And also two, it's like, Emma, those are your maids. They're paid to be nice to you. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, did Balan do that?
Did
is that
Balan,
the power of Balan?
Did Balan say to them, hey, now be nice.
Yeah.
Host a party.
Yeah, bake her a cake. Come on. And also, did Emma forget that it was her birthday?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, no one's come to see me for my birthday. Not even my maids. They all just gossip at each other the whole time.
And it's like, what do they say? Emma's like 12.
Yeah, what's
like, are they whispering, like, oh, she got a C in maths?
I want to mention the bonuses for getting to the very
wonderful reward that you get for finishing Balan Wonderworld.
All the dialogue is now in English, and the songs are now in English. So it has the entire point of this game having this like universal language that you're not meant to understand. You're meant to understand motions and actions and visuals more than words. No, it's that you can hear the songs in English now.
You also get more levels.
you get like a third level
a third
for each,
actual level for
which
each world.
lets you unlock more Balan statues.
Yeah, they have a new unique Balan statue, which is like a rainbow Balan.
Yeah.
You get 72 of them, and I was just like, fuck off, Yuji. Come on. There's already like 220 Balan statues in the world.
And now there's even more.
Yeah.
It's a very flaccid ending.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. There's also like a secret dance with Balan in it now.
Oh, where he's hot Balan.
And
Yeah,
it's like, shut up.
It's like, no.
It's the same motion. It's all motion capture stuff.
Yeah, and the dances are all really flaccid and plain looking. Like they're not even good performances.
No.
So they all look really awkward and just lifeless. And it's like, but this is like the crux of the entire story.
Yeah.
Like, how could this not be good?
It feels like the theater aesthetic is not important at all.
Yeah, it's entirely wasted on this game. Like it does not make use of that style at all, and it's really distressing because it could have been really cool. But
oh man,
like at least Nights into Dreams uses the dream aesthetic really well. Like it keeps that thing going for the entire game. Whereas this is just like, I don't know, it's a performance, I guess.
Yeah,
you dance sometimes. That's how you know.
There you are. You are. Oh my god. I think my conclusion on Balan Wonderworld is...
It's a game that's hard to criticize. Maybe that's not true.
Okay, yeah.
It's a game that's hard to collect my entire thoughts on it, because it's not that the game is quote-unquote annoying or irritating or was a pain to really play. It's just really lifeless and kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have any real flavor or style to it that really makes it feel memorable or interesting or evocative or thought-provoking. It's just a kind of bland mush. It's like you've just put Yuji Naka's brain into an auto-generate machine and it's just made this one game that has all of his weird traits in it.
Yeah.
While not actually having any identity of its own, you know?
No. This came out at a bad time, and it didn't have enough prep. It didn't have enough like ideas behind it or anything like that. I'd love for platformers to come back, but for the most part, it seems to be primarily in homages or that kind of thing.
Yeah, or whatever Nintendo's doing at that given time.
Yeah. The odds were stacked against Balan,
and
it wasn't going to be able to play a hand that was going to save it, right?
No.
And
it's funny as well because it's just Kirby.
Yeah,
it's just a really simple platformer with a bunch of costumes. It's just bad Kirby,
but without the fun kind of cutesy parts of Kirby. It's a really bad implementation of the costume mechanic.
Definitely, yeah.
It's slow. It's not got much design merit in terms of like it as a game.
Honestly, I think this is the one game I'm going to say this about. There is no reason to play Balan Wonderworld.
You kidding? Really?
I don't think there's anything to be gained from actually playing it. I think you can watch all the CG cutscenes and have the experience that you need to have.
Okay. That's fascinating given how I went into this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to swear to that firmly. I feel like this is still a game where it's like, see it for yourself if you want, but...
Well, that's the thing, is that I do feel happy that we went to go see it for ourselves, but if I'm being asked to give my recommendation about it, I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. Like, it's not worth looking at.
No, I think I'd agree, actually. This is not a game I would recommend other people play, but I think it's one of those things where if you're someone that thinks to themselves, all right, I want to kind of experience bad games for themselves and see how I really feel about them, try it. It's cheap.
Yeah.
Go for it. But I think just on any other recommendation, like, we'd recommend Time Splitters. We'd recommend Total War. We'd recommend Resident Evil. And
I would recommend
Haunting Ground.
Every game we've played so far.
Even Geist.
I would say Geist is interesting. I would say Geist, you can get a lot about the era and about how games can fail from that game. I think Geist is fun to play.
Yeah.
Not fun to play, but fun to engage with, basically.
There's parts of it that are fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fun to shoot a guy and watch him float around.
Yeah. And like it has like unique ideas, whereas I don't think Balan does.
No, Balan does feel a bit regurgitated. It has a very polarizing art style, and it's a shame. It's one of those cases that it's a game that fascinates me because of its failure. I see potential. There's parts of it that are charm. It's so passionate. But I'm not rooting for you, Balan. Sorry.
I think my final conclusion on Balan Wonderworld is that this might be a great performance, but sorry, honey, it's only a one-night show.
That's a good way to put it. That's all, folks. Actually, I shouldn't say that before we do our kind of like rankings. Because I want to ask you where you feel about this on quality.
So the thing about Balan Wonderworld is that it's not disastrously bad in terms of its core elements.
Yeah.
This is a game which is not the sum of its parts. This is a game that it has mechanics and level design and visuals and music, but they don't cohere to make anything that interesting.
Yeah.
So it is simultaneously the most mediocre middle-of-the-road game we've played and also just the worst game we've played.
Yeah.
Because it's just so bland and tasteless and just empty of any kind of real significance that I find it hard to actually rank it. Because is it worse than Clock Tower 3? Probably, but it just feels weird to say that, you know?
I would probably say in terms of quality, I would rate it as low. I think that despite the merits of its kind of visual design and how pretty that it is, it's a ship with a poor captain.
Yeah.
That has a lovely
It's misguided,
It has a lovely lick of paint, but it didn't stuck enough lifeboats.
Yeah. I'm definitely with low, but I'm not sure if I want to make it the worst game we played so far.
Do I like this less than Geist? I want to say Geist isn't that pretty.
Geist is not that pretty. Geist does not have Baba Booey music.
I won't split hairs, but I'll say it's in the same rung. I don't think. Yeah. As for interesting, how would you feel about it?
I think this is once again the issue, because it's not that interesting. It's just a regurgitated Nights into Dreams that has even less to say. But at the same time, the story of its development, the history of its creator, the kind of context into which it was born makes it kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go middle high.
Yeah, I think I'd concur with that for the same reason, is that I think that the background of how it's come to be in the context of when it's come out is what makes it special in a way. Because that tends to be the thing I find fascinating, is just how games fail.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty good example of that with good old Balan. Maybe bordering on high, but I think middle high makes sense.
Yeah.
And as for fun...
So the thing that was fun about this game is that it evoked in us a kind of chaotic energy that was fun to engage with and to like dunk on it. I felt that we had one of our best atmospheres when we were playing this game.
Yeah.
But actually playing the game itself wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where it's like hanging out with my friend Connor is fun.
Yeah.
And Balan Wonderworld facilitated that.
Well, so the first session of us playing this is one of my favourite sessions of us doing these things.
Because it was very easy to rag on. Like it's a game that's inherently embarrassing, so it's just good to talk about it. But it's not actually fun to play. And there were definitely a few levels where we were just sitting there just like, oh, I have to go get it.
Yeah, but it's that progression system that really drags it down.
Actually bringing up the progression, I'm going to say low.
Yeah, this is definitely no higher than low for me.
Any game that's a free session game that isn't good will be low.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's free sessions of this, God.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it at the right at the bottom compared to other games we've played, but this is... No. But that's kind of where we're feeling on Balan. I'm sorry, Yuji Naka, who is currently under house arrest for his insider trading, I believe.
I think so. I don't know if he's actually in jail, sadly.
Yeah. But that's why we're starting to make this podcast actually as part of a united effort
free Yuji Naka,
hashtag free Naka. Who
please write your parliament member.
Yeah, please write to your parliament, even if you're not in Japan.
Yeah. Please write to the Diet. Just imagining a Persona 5 arc where it's Yuji Naka.
You have to free him in mementos.
We gave it a fair shot.
Yeah.
We came into Balan trying to do it justice, and I think we did that.
Yeah. That's more than I can think a lot of people can say, and I'm very chuffed with that.
Which means we're better than all of them. We're the top, we're the peak.
We're the 1% of gamers. We're the 1% of podcast hosts that have talked about Balan Wonderworld and said something nice about it.
That'll be on my grave.
Yeah, I think that I need a decent palate cleanser after I play this. I'm thinking just playing something that's short, sweet, and fun. Maybe something that's got a little bit more of a faster pace than the slow, kind of sludgy, kind of plodding along of Balan.
What are you thinking?
Oh, I don't know. Probably something that just really gives me the rush of the race, you know? Something that really makes me feel like I'm living life on the edge.
You know, I was thinking to myself the other day, Connor, you ever remember a little game called Ridge Racer?
Ridge Racer!
Here we go again.
Running like the open wind.
There we go, yeah.
So, the next game on the list is going to be Ridge Racer Type 4. It is one of my favourites.
It's one of my favourites now too.
Yes!
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be talking about next. I'm very passionate about this sort of game, I hope that we have a lot of fun talking about it, and I hope that you enjoy listening to it too.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the art.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on all 10 episodes of The List Goes On.
Yes, thank you very much. Happy 10th episodes
to the list. Yeah. Here's the 10 more.
Absolutely, the list will go on.
The list will always go on.
We hope that you will join us for it, so I hope that you have a wonderful night, day, evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah. Make good choices.
And take care.